It's the intergalactic soul, the honorable brother, the revolutionary yourself, Darius Lockhart, and I'm here to tell you to watch Powerbombshells every Sunday at 1 p.m. Eastern on the Fight Game Media YouTube channel. That's right, every Sunday at 1 p.m., and that's on time, every time, because when we stand together, what time is it? That's right, it's nation time.
Oh, I can't hear you. Uh-oh. I don't know if everyone else can hear you. Oh, I can't hear you. We're live, pals. Oh, I'm missing an action because I'm going to pop Sam live when she gets ready for. Oh, you're just muted, sweetie. Just unclick your mute on the.
I did.
There it is.
Oh, it's the microphone.
There it is. I can hear you now.
Can you?
I can.
Yeah, I was trying to tell you, and then you went live.
I'm sorry.
Wait, I was like, no, my mic is not working. It says it's not
I didn't see it at the last minute. Crap. This is the funniest, coldest open ever. All right.
Yeah, I see that, Brad. That mic is making a comeback for me. I was trying to tell Mel, and I was like, it's not working.
I'm really sorry. I totally missed that one.
I typed it in our private chat, and she went live.
I never
anyway,
look in there because it's my fault because I never. You know what? It's my fault because here's why, Sam. Just look. This is why.
Oh my God.
I have this problem with this here. So
that explains everything. It's that damn Jack Perry.
That it's
and that damn elite.
This scapegoat shows up at my house. I'm like, I don't even know you, bro. I'm not. I mean, I had to do it.
You could wear it the whole show if you would.
Oh,
like
no way.
Don't move your neck though, because you'll get yelled at on
Look
Twitter.
at me, I'm shaking my head already. It's like,
yeah. See, you're just like Tony Khan, not following the rules of a neck brace.
We have to talk about Vince, and Vince did the neck brace thing back in the 80s or whatever. In the 90s.
Sure did. Somebody said that the other day. They were like, at least it wasn't there for a steroid trial.
Right. Yeah. And then for me, that was a gimmick on a lot of sitcoms did that in the old days, where someone would come to like in a neck brace, and like I remember it in a courtroom drama or a courtroom comedy where a dude like dropped a book and the guy turns his head even though he's wearing the neck brace, and that's how they like disprove the thing. So
Brad says that Tony went after Mel for calling him out so much about shows in Detroit.
When did he do that? Oh, yeah. Oh, you're saying because that's how I got beat up? Yeah. Yes. He sent Jack Perry after me. He's like, get that girl to stop tweeting at me that I should come to Detroit, even though he totally should come to Detroit. Like, what the hell?
He should.
Everything on air.
Word on the street is. Okay, so apparently Nikki is struggling too. Her chat wouldn't load, and she said she was going to have to text me and say she couldn't join our friends in the chat. So I don't know.
You know what? It's the weather and the weirdness.
It just kept saying, your mic is not attached. I'm like, it is attached. What are you talking about?
So you know what? I love that opening. It's an amazing opening.
I mean, I guess
it's the pure Power Bombshells open.
So I guess it's on brand.
We are so on brand.
At least y'all got to hear Darius, so there's that.
Yep.
Nikki said it's aliens.
Aliens, probably. Could be.
Yeah.
I'm open to all the possible, like, apocalypse situation or,
right.
Alien invasions.
Sounds about right.
Yep. That's exactly it. Yep. Aliens. That's too funny. All right.
Oh, well, I guess now that we're we've got things under control now for the moment.
Stop the madness.
All right. So I guess So we're just gonna jump right into this terribleness, I guess. The shit sandwich.
Do we have to? Can I talk about how I'm going to an indie wrestling show on June 1st for a place that's like 20 minutes or half an hour away from me? That the Motor City Machine Guns are scheduled to be on.
Yes.
Very excited. City Championship Wrestling.
Exciting.
And then they're going to throw an event in my town. And
Awesome.
that's like, I can walk to it. So
even better.
I hope that it's go out. And it's for, it's a charity show. It's in collaboration with one of our like animal shelters locally. And all the proceeds are going to the shelter.
That's awesome.
So it's super cool. Yeah,
That's
it's really
cool.
fun. And it's like set up like one of the shops in town that you would actually love. They make the hand soap for my pub. They make special hand soap for them, but it's they make all natural stuff. They're called Green Thyme, the herb.
Oh, that's a very clever name.
So they're like kind of the like hosting group of it and stuff. So it's really fun. It's like my whole time. So I get to see them in Lance Cruz High School gymnasium, which I haven't been to an indie show in a gym in so long, and I'm so excited. It's
well, I take that back. I take that back. Ashe too was in
a gym.
Yeah, and that was awesome. It was great. Loved it.
And I've been watching the heck out of their YouTube channel, and they have some good people on there. Like I'm excited.
Yeah.
Like not just Ashe, but on City Championship too. Like it's awesome. Cool. I'm like subscribing to all these indie like channels and watching all their stuff. It's really fun.
Oh, that's awesome. That's great that you're getting that exposure, and they are doing it right then if they are getting people to go look at their other stuff and checking them out. That's really so they're doing very good. That's awesome. You're gonna have so much fun. And
I haven't been doing indie show in such a long time. I wanted to get that out there before we talk about Jerkface.
Yeah, and speaking of indies, I wanted to bring this up. Title Belt is back this Friday. They're coming back. They're going to be at a new location. I've actually never been to it. It's like on the other side of Charlotte. But yeah, I think they've just announced like 4 matches, and it seems like they're doing a little bit of a smaller scale, like as far as like the number of matches, I think because they're trying to kind of rebuild, since they haven't, I think the last show was back in July, I think is when I went to the show and saw Speedball versus Sean Legacy in a brewery in the main event. Yep. And so I believe that was the last show. So, but I'm really looking forward to it. They're doing some stuff with some of the local wrestlers of the indie that they could kind of focus on in the earlier shows. And so I'm looking forward to seeing what they do. And I'm glad that they're back because I really like what they're doing. And I like the idea of like the community based wrestling promotion that gives back to the community and stuff like that. So I'm really looking forward to it. And I will report back on
that. That's awesome.
I'll report back on Sunday and let you know about how that went.
Awesome.
Like, I want you to report back about your stuff.
Yeah, I have months to plan. So, I mean, well, not months. It'll be here quicker than that. I mean, it's only a month away from Wednesday. So
right, it's coming.
Like, how did it get to May almost already?
I know. Well, and that's why
it finally decided to be like. I was joking online today because the draft has been here since Thursday.
Right.
In case anyone missed it.
Yeah.
It's all over local media. Like it's so much fun to watch everyone. It's super exciting. But we had a frost warning Thursday night overnight.
Oh gosh.
It was 80 yesterday. And it rained, downpoured a couple of those the second day of the draft.
Oh wow.
So Friday it downpoured in the morning and then cleared up and was like beautiful. And I was joking that not only did everyone get to go downtown and be around our cool town, they got the pure Michigan weather experience.
That's what I was just about to say. They got the true experience of being in your state.
It's like that's what it's like all the time. I want to tell people. So what you experienced at the draft, for those of you out there that may be listening, that is what it's like here all the time. And and it just changes. Like the precipitation turns into snow in the winter or in July. I mean, you never know.
It feels like
it's like
keeps you on your toes.
Tornado warning in February this year, so why not? It's Climate crisis. Good thing it doesn't exist because it would really screw up already weird weather.
Right?
It's thank God it's a myth. Like,
Thank goodness.
it's
Thank goodness it's a myth that it's going to be 80s and it's going to be in the 80s all week, Charlotte, in April.
April.
It's been like 80s, then like 50s and 60s, 70s where it's supposed to be. And it's been the like it keeps going back and forth in the 80s, and then like this week it's like all 80s. Like we're gonna be like 86 like later this week.
That's ridiculously hot for this time of year.
It is, yeah.
That's not. I mean, you're down south, but that's silly.
Like, yeah, and I was like, no, this is not usually. We're usually getting in like the low 70s at this time of year. Like we're
cold. Like some of you guys are getting like colder weather in the winter than you're used to.
We have been for the I was trying to tell somebody this a few years ago because he was like, oh, because it's like mild all year, and I was like, no, bro, climate change is the thing. Like it's cold.
That's that's cold for people that are used to a different climate situation.
Yeah,
like,
well, and it's been
here in the winter. We've gotten like, and we need it because we're like under drought conditions. Like we've gotten like no snow at all this year. I think that we had a record for the least amount of snow this year.
Wow, that's crazy. Yeah, like January, I think it was like the wettest month on. Like it was like the wettest January on record. It was like we got like 8 inches of rain in January. Like we never get that much rain. I mean, it rains, but nothing like that. Like it's been. I was like,
and I don't think there was snow in the Upper Peninsula of Michigan for the first time in like ever.
Wow. Yeah.
Like it's usually in the winter, it's just snow up there.
Yeah.
Like you have to, but weird. So weird. And then there's like solar flares, aliens.
Taking over our broadcast.
It's wild. It's wild times. And
well,
I mean, we're just sorry. We're avoiding talking about.
No. Well, yeah, and I'm glad that they got to truly experience your state.
I am happy. I feel like it seemed like it went off pretty well.
Well, maybe since Tony saw how well the draft went, maybe that will help push him towards bringing a but maybe he will need to make sure that, well, you don't have any do you have open air stadiums, or are they all roofed?
We have a place called Pine Knob that he could potentially put on a show that's sort of an outdoor amphitheater style.
Well, and that's the reason I was asking, because I was like, if you have crazy weather like this, he might want to make sure that there's a roof.
But just all of our like if if he were to do a stadium show at Ford Field where the Lions play, it's domed. So
right,
which was weird for me when we went to see the Seahawks play the Lions there.
I can imagine. Yeah, because Bank of America Stadium is open air.
Yeah, Seattle's is outside also. It's well, I can't remember what it's called now. Lumen Field is what it's. We still call it the Clink because CenturyLink owned it and we liked that name. So a lot of times we'll inadvertently call it the Clink. But I think it's called Lumen Field or something now, but it's outdoor and it has real grass is one of the cool things about it.
We used to have real grass until David Tepper came along, and he decided that because
the hype train is real today,
we're going to have soccer. We have a soccer team that plays out of there, and they decided that we were going to replace it with turf, and they pissed off they pissed off a bunch of football players because they were getting injuries. And
I'm surprised they didn't piss off the soccer players. As a soccer player, I hate playing on turf. I always hated playing on turf. It's like playing indoor almost because you're like slippery and there's no grab. I detested playing on.
Yeah,
and it speeds the game up too much.
I'm thinking both sets of football players probably don't
exactly
don't want to play on turf. And then because and I guess part of the reason they did turf is because they've brought concerts back to the stadium, because they used to bring because it actually happened from when one of the things I found out when I used to work game days for a couple of seasons, and we hadn't had concerts in a while, and I was talking somebody in the organization was telling us that because the last concert they had there was it was Kenny Chesney and Tim McGraw. Their fans trashed the stadium badly that they stopped doing concerts because they ruined the field. And they were like, so they didn't do concerts for probably close to a decade or something like that. And then so Tepper came in put in artificial grass, starting having concerts again. And then the soccer team is there, obviously, that's their home stadium. And the turf is a pain in the ass. I don't like it.
That sucks. I mean, I feel bad for them because that it is way more injury prone because there's not the right amount of give. And this is totally different feel as a person who's like done both.
Yeah,
I've had to play it all over. I mean, whether it was with the kids or just I played co-rec out west when I was out there, and some of our fields, man, whew.
Yeah.
No thanks. I hated it. I had to I had to buy like a whole special pair of cleats just for it, basically, because I needed like grab. I almost would have rather play with sneakers or like that kind of kick.
Right.
Because it's so hard to get. You can't get good try. It's terrible. I just hate it.
Yeah, it seems like I haven't really heard. I'm sure the soccer players have complained about it too. But I know some of the Panthers players hate it, and they're like, then they're getting like, because that's when you get like turf toe and like more in like.
Because there's no give.
Yeah,
it's like because it's like hard. It's like a wrestling mat. It's more like it. I mean, actually, the wrestling mat might have a little more give because it's springier.
Right.
That sucks. That's lazy. Screw that.
Lazy.
Screw that guy. Yeah. I love that. Yeah, one of the things about. I mean, Seattle has like spectacular stadiums.
That's what I hear.
They like. Well, Safeco even it's got a retractable roof, which is what they did for WrestleMania. That was why they could do it in April in Seattle. So that's really. But that's one of my favorite venues in all of sports. I just love going there. I'm not like a giant Mariners fan or something. I don't have a baseball team really. I enjoy baseball. I just don't have a team much.
Right.
I mean, the Red Sox is the closest thing, but I know I hate the Yankees. So that is yuck the Fankies.
Yep.
that did infiltrate me. From living in New England my whole life,
of course,
growing up. But they were. It's just such a fun experience to go there. It's a lot of fun, and
it sounds awesome.
We actually were when we were living there. Ichiro was still playing, so we
got to
see him.
That's very cool.
Which is kind of cool because
I
mean, he was such a huge star, and it's a great place. Best garlic fries anywhere.
I bet they are. I love garlic fries.
Oh, I haven't seen. Bob has been to a Tigers game. He's been down there because they've gone for their company sponsors a bunch of.
Oh, okay, yeah, that makes sense.
So they went down there and they ate at Wahlburgers or whatever. And
we ate at the Wahlburgers in Atlanta. That's in the Battery. We went and actually have a blog about it from my blog that has nothing to do with wrestling. Actually, it's to do with foods that Nikki can have. But we went there, and it was like very limited to what she could have. I think she basically just had I can't remember if they had. She's probably she may remember, but it's been like 5 years. But I think they had gluten-free buns. They were supposed to be building like a location in Raleigh, and I think it like fell through. I think they ended up, but the location in the Battery, because the Battery surrounds the ballpark, and so it's like technically like a block, like it's really close there. And I think they still do like really good business because they're right there at the ballpark, and so
that's probably because it is right there. That is, I mean, it's
and that's how they've got the Battery has some really great restaurants like that are like there's one that we really like, and they were great with Nikki's food sensitivities, and like they went to like the waiter like made sure to answer all her questions. Like he was like, let me go ask the chef, and like he was like, okay, this is what we can do. And then he was really great, and the restaurant had not been open very long. Like I think we went like the very first weekend that it was open, but they were wonderful and their food was delicious. But like we sat outside on the patio, and from the patio you can see the gate for the ballpark, and they have a big screen outside that they show like the game on, and we could see it from like where we were sitting, which was really cool. And Nikki said they have food I can eat with a clap hand.
Yay!
It's called Yard House.
I hear you.
I think they have some other locations, but Yard House is really good. But I enjoyed the Wahlburgers when we went. It was good. And Brad says, "Hell yeah, screw the Skankies. Living in New York makes me hate them even more."
Oh, I bet he's a Mets fan. Are you a Mets fan? Are you a fan of any of the local teams? I don't know.
I'm trying to remember. I should know this because I've seen Brad talk about it and we've talked about it before. And
He's probably. I mean, I got to imagine he'd be a Mets fan from the part of New York, maybe that if you're in New York.
Jeremy said Yard House is everywhere. Yeah, I think there's one. I don't think there's one in Charlotte, but I feel like Yard House. I think they're in Raleigh. I want to say. Oh, Brad says Dodgers, Red Sox, and Royals.
Oh, okay, fair enough. You just like picked different teams entirely. I totally understand that. That makes sense. It's like it would be fruitless to be a Mets or a Jets fan, I think, if we're all being honest. It's those. I feel bad for my friends who are Jets fans. I really do. It's man.
Nikki said at Wahlburgers, I had chicken. She had a chicken sandwich and tater tots. Yard House had really good chicken. Yeah, I remember her liking the chicken a lot.
I haven't.
And Jeremy said he
Yard House ones.
A Yard House on. There's one on the West Coast near him. And then,
I bet there's one downtown. Then, if it's that big a deal, or if there isn't, they're trying to open one up.
Yeah, I need to look. Yeah, I wish they had one in Charlotte because they had
Brooklyn
really good
Dodgers.
food.
Got it.
Yeah,
makes sense. I knew a lot of people.
That's how I became a Braves fan. My grandpa was a Braves fan because he grew up in Georgia, and then also, like at the time, that was it. There were no other teams for a while, or the closest was Baltimore. It was Baltimore and the Orioles. So it was, but yeah, that's how I became a Braves fan. My grandfather was one.
I never got inside, but before the Key Bridge, I used to, because I went to school in DC, I used to go to Baltimore all the time because it's such a cool town.
Right.
And when you were driving across the bridge and into town, you could see into Camden Yards.
Oh, awesome.
So beautiful. And and it's right on the water. It's right on the inner harbor. So, I mean, I got to see that one, but it's so cool. It's like one of the coolest stadiums I've ever seen. And then, we went and walked. I made Bob walk me over to Wrigley Field.
Oh, very
which
cool.
was cool because Nick was like totally into that too because he likes.
Yeah, we were talking when we went to All In. We had talked about, because we came in early, we had talked about trying to get to. I can't remember if it was the Cubs were in town or if the White Sox were in town, but regardless, like we would have had to take the subway in, and it was like 2 hours from where we were at because it was in Hoffman Estates, and then it was like 2 hours back, obviously, and like I think that was part of the reason we just decided because I was with a bunch of baseball fans, and so we're like, hell yeah, we want to go, and then we were like, that is really far away. We didn't realize how far away Hoffman Estates is from everything.
yeah, it's in the burbs.
Yes.
It takes forever, and you probably have to make connections.
So I want to go back to. So I need to go back to Chicago specifically to go to games at both of those parks.
Forbidden Door one was at United Center, and that's the reason, because we were in the city, so you could like walk or take the L to everything, and it was quick and awesome. Like that's a great, like, their public transportation is so dope. I mean, DC's is pretty good, but it doesn't go out far enough.
Mm-hmm.
The L goes out pretty far, but not that far, because that would be ridiculous. you JD suburbians. says the Detroit suburban. Although it's only like it's under an hour if you have a good trip to get to Detroit from where I am.
That's not bad. So. That's not bad at all.
Pretty reasonable.
Yeah, they're trying to figure out our public transportation shit. It's been a mess, but I think that they're moving forward with some certain things, and they're trying to get. I think they're talking about getting like a train from between here and Raleigh, which would be great.
Oh, that's awesome!
They would finally get around to doing that. They've talked about it for years, and then like nothing ever came to fruition, and they've started up talks again in the last couple of months. And I think they're like actually pushing to do it this time, like, and make it get done. And they're trying to figure out, like, there is a light rail, like the links, and it goes to like it doesn't go super far out from Charlotte, but it goes out to like the university area, which is great because that's where UNC Charlotte is there, and so students can get back and forth. So that's one. But
see, that's what I would have liked about DC, because I was in Fairfax County, and it would have been great if the metro went to where I lived from school, but it didn't.
Right.
And
for
no really good reason. I mean, it mostly is that's the richest county in the nation, because that's where all the senators live. And I mean, it's Fairfax County is the county in Northern Virginia that DC is adjacent to.
Right.
And it's one of the and all the like suburbs that all the like people that work in DC, they live there. So that's where the metro goes. But
of course
not that part of.
Well, that's like the MARTA and Atlanta went to the old where the Braves used to play, but then they moved to Cobb County because that's where most of their season ticket holders are at, and the MARTA doesn't go to Cobb County, so a lot of the poorer people cannot take public transit to go to games.
It's really funny
how that works.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that, because even Seattle, Jim was talking about the fact that they're trying to build the light rail across the lake, which would be great, because there's a big lake in the middle of Seattle that people don't realize, and like all the suburbs are kind of around it. And the rich guy that owns the mall that it would have to go through which was right next to the community center I used to work at, so I know how rich it was. He doesn't want that coming into his area.
Doesn't. Why would?
So and they need to like go through his area to get like have the light rail, and he's just like, no, I can't have the poors at my mall. And I mean, like, I worked with the kids that went to that mall for a bit, because the community center that I worked at was one of those kinds that like the kids were very, very well off.
Of course.
They had their birthdays at Build-A-Bear, and like, I mean, it just was crazy. It was wild to me. And but yeah, he doesn't want the light rail to go through his fancy mall. So
of course not.
Dude, you want workers to come into your place, like what?
You would think
it's like so counter economic. Like, I can't even, like, wow, we are seriously trying to avoid this discussion today. This is amazing. It broke our podcast to even think about it.
It sure did.
Just thinking of the universe, just thinking about us having this conversation broke our podcast intro.
It sure did.
And then we've gone on a 30-minute, almost 27-minute rant about like all cooler things, baseball venues, weather. I love this.
Rich people who don't want the poor
people to have
the MJFs. Yeah, who don't want the poors near them.
Can't have the
Speaking of MJF, did you hear the latest on him?
Yeah, what is up there?
So apparently I think we mentioned it a couple weeks ago. There was a report like that came out a couple weeks ago saying that he met with AEW the day after Big Business. Nobody knew what it was about. Okay. But then it come to find out what is going around. I don't know if it's been officially confirmed, but what's going around is that he ended up having to have surgery, and there is no timetable for his return. And so it's up in, it's pretty up in the air. And so that's still his injury, and the Adam Cole injury is like, now they can't get to this. They can't finish the Devil storyline because Adam Cole has been struggling, and I don't know that, I mean, obviously he stood up out of his wheelchair and walked a little bit, but I don't know that he's cleared for in-ring action yet. And then now MJF has had surgery reportedly, and we don't know, there's supposedly no timetable for him to come back. So I guess at this point I was like, they should just probably get rid of that story and just like not finish it, because I mean, what if he's out for like 6 more months or another year? Like, how are you going to come back and finish the story? Like, they might just have to drop it, I guess. I don't know what they're going to do.
I mean, maybe they are, as like they're building this new sort of like EVPs versus like everybody kind of like, maybe they're starting to distract away from it. Like Don Callis being Mr. I mean, his handle on Twitter is the invisible hand. So I mean, something I greatly appreciate about, like, one of the many things that I love about Don Callis. He is one of my favorite heels in the whole wide world. Like, but yeah, so he won't be back for Long Island. And
doesn't
then
sound like, for Forbidden Door, it doesn't sound like it.
And then Wembley. Okay, so I mean, we had both heard rumors of how they had scripted some of this year going into All In, and there's some things have changed, obviously signing new talent and things like that, but that was potentially in the works as much as it could be.
Yeah, because
I mean, if we look at like where we are, and then Swerve got hot, of course, which like they needed.
And so that's why I think that's why I told somebody last night. I feel like that's part of the reason they went ahead and belted Swerve when they did, was because the rumor that we had heard, that Mel and I both had heard, like a while back, this was pre MJF getting injured, that Joe was winning the title in December. MJF was taking it off of him, then MJF would be the champion going into Wembley, and Ospreay would win it from him. And so that was the story that I think, and Mel and I were not the only ones who heard this. Quite a few people had heard that was the plan. And then obviously MJF got hurt, and he had multiple injuries, but I think he had the report going around is that he had shoulder surgery.
I think that he was trying really, really, really hard to not have the surgery, because if I remember right, it was one of those surgeries where like all the promoters and all the athletic people and everyone were like, I've never seen someone come back all the way from that surgery. Like, it's never I mean, we have great science. He'll be fine. He'll be able to use his arm. Right. But in terms of like performing as a wrestler, I mean,
it remains to be
it's tricky with him though, because he is a persona. Like, he was very protective of himself. I mean, he did mostly talking and like threw other guys at guys. And the whole thing, like 2 times he had storylines where it was like, no, you can't wrestle me. You need to like wrestle this guy to wrestle me, and then this guy to wrestle me. And the only time I wrestle is at pay-per-views, basically, was
right. And then towards the end, he started wrestling more often, and then he got injured. Which I guess proved his point.
I guess.
So I don't know. That'll be really interesting. I don't know what they're gonna do. Like, I don't know if there's gonna be any point where they can bring him back as an on-screen character, but how do you finish that story as an on-screen character only and not in the ring? Like, I don't think that I don't know how they would do that. And things are moving so quickly with everybody else that they brought in. And like, we've got Swerve, who, like you said, got super hot. And so they went ahead and, he's the champion now. And they've got, I mean, Ospreay is clearly waiting, and like, we'll get to some of the stuff with Ospreay in a little bit when we cover some of the Dynasty fallout. But like, I don't know. I don't know what they're going to do whenever and that's the thing, is we don't know what his timetable is. Like, we don't know if it's 6 to 12 months. Is it 12 to 18 months? Is it 18?
It's never good when they give you the like ambiguous, the open-ended answer.
Right. And again, these are not confirmed reports as of yet. As far as I have seen, I haven't seen anything confirmed, but this was what was going around yesterday apparently it was from people close to MJF, were the people who were saying it.
If Sean Ross Sapp is talking about that, then that's probably like, it's probably something there.
I didn't see it from him yet. I mean, he probably did, but when I saw it was from like some of these kind of engagement accounts, but they tend to have, but
they do tend to be right. You're right.
So I don't know. I mean, Sean Ross Sapp may have reported it since I have seen it. I don't know. I haven't seen anything today about it, but so that is something to keep an eye on, because if it gets confirmed, that's really huge that he's could be out for an undetermined amount of time, especially because we have Adam Cole is apparently not. I guess he's not. I guess he's not cleared for in-ring action. I guess he can get around, because we saw him stand up, and they hinted at the Wardlow stuff with him. So I guess maybe he'll be cleared imminently. But Mercedes Moné is not being she's not cleared. Tony wouldn't say because somebody asked, "Is she cleared right now?" And he said she'll be cleared for Double or Nothing. So he won't confirm that she is cleared. And then we don't know.
It's pretty obvious from what they're doing with her. It feels
that
like
she's not cleared.
hurting, and it's hurtful. I mean, it's
right.
not.
And she's got to work off ring rust, and her first match back is going to be the pay-per-view. So
it's going to be the pay-per-view.
So they must have some belief in her, though. If they feel like they can hold her out, she's going to be able to put on a pay-per-view worthy match. So hopefully she is. And then there's been rumors that there are creative plans for Britt Baker, but I still have not heard.
Yeah, like
she's healed.
Disappeared.
There's no word on Jamie Hayter. We've talked about that a lot.
She had her back problems, though.
That she's had severe back problems. Juice Robinson, who I'm wearing, Juice Robinson had back surgery at the end of last year. He's not going to be around for a while. So they, as far as how, I mean, they have such a deep roster that they can, of course they miss them to an extent, but then it also shows you like they have quite a few top people who are still out with injury. And so that's, I mean, because no matter what you think of MJF, except for maybe the last couple months with this double storyline, is that, he was a ratings draw for a really long time. And so they're hurting without that. And then you've got two of the best women in your division who have been sidelined for a very long time. And I didn't even realize until when Phoenix came back last night, he's been out since October. Gosh. Like, that's how long. It's crazy that he's
Although I guess, I mean, again, you kind of said it, though, a testament to AEW that you sort of didn't realize the space between, because there's been so many. I mean, there's sort of a balance here that is starting to get a little off. Is we're getting so used to good matches that we're forgetting about them.
Yeah, and there would be times I would be I would be like, man, I'm ready for Phoenix to come back, but I didn't realize that
I hear you. That's
last fall he'd been injured.
Yeah, I didn't think it was that. It didn't seem like it's been that long.
And I'm glad I'm glad that he came back last night, because he is scheduled to wrestle Penta for HOG Wrestling on their Cinco de Mayo show. That's the main event, is Penta versus Phoenix.
Nice.
So yeah, so I'm glad to see him. And that match last night with Beast Mortos was fantastic. I was surprised how much they gave the Beast Mortos in the beginning. I mean, he's very good, obviously. If you remember, because for those of you who are not, that's the Black Taurus. CMLL will not allow him to use that name anymore. So they own the name. So that's why he has the new masks, a little scarier looking. And he's got the new name, but that match was fantastic. I loved that match. And I'm glad and Phoenix looked great, and I'm glad that he's back.
Me too.
Hi, Colin.
Hey, Colin. What's shaking? They are fine, Bacon. They definitely are.
Yeah, we didn't know. Penta didn't get a full singles run, but he did wrestle singles matches, because he got the lucha match with Adam Copeland a few weeks ago. He's had a few singles matches, but then they were doing mostly him and Commander. But I think that was also to help Commander to work with somebody like Penta, because Commander is great, but he's also to work with somebody like Penta is huge. I think that's kind of like when they were putting, we've seen them put some of the younger guys with veterans. And so I think putting Penta with Commander made a lot of sense. Yeah, like he said, that it was so good. It was good. And yes, Vinkin says it's a bloody shame Lucha Underground died.
True story.
When I did have access to it, Alberto Del Rio was in it. I was like, God dang it. Why am I getting access to? I can't escape this man. Speaking of him, last night they had a match for the vacant AAA Mega Championship between Alberto Del Patron versus Nick Nemeth, and Nick Nemeth won. So that's interesting that Nick Nemeth holds that title and is also in New Japan. I don't know how that's going to work.
Oh my goodness.
I don't know what's going to happen.
CMLL.
Or no, that's AAA.
Or AAA.
AAA. Actually,
yeah, the Mexican promotion.
AAA, yes. I don't know what AAA and New Japan. That's probably not going to go over well.
No, that they don't tend to play well together.
No, so I don't know what's going to happen. Maybe Nick Nemeth is on the end of his New Japan run, but I don't know what's going to happen with that. Brad says Mortos is in a 3-match winning streak in ROH. That's more wins in his entire Impact TNA run. I saw you say that last night to somebody, Brad, and that's insane to me. That because he had can't believe he was in Impact that long and never won a match. That's insane to me.
So dumb. I hate that crap.
Vincent says, like, I see this clip of arm breaking Penta, and I'm like, can't we get this guy? Right.
I mean,
Yes,
you know,
Alberto El Patron is washed. Good. Please get out of the business forever.
Bye.
He should be in jail, but you know.
Bye.
Speaking of people who should be in jail.
That's a good segue.
Yes, we'll just segue right into the story we've been importing for 40 minutes.
Guys, we'll finally deal with this crap.
Yes. So on Tuesday of this week, Vince McMahon's legal team put out a filing in which, of course, he denies the allegations in the Janel Grant lawsuit. He claims their relationship was consensual, calls her a liar, and he says that he never coerced her in any way and he never mistreated her in any way. And he's also arguing that his NDA for Grant contains an arbitration clause and he's pushing for private arbitration because he doesn't want this shit in public. Shockingly.
Like adorable, except that those NDAs aren't worth shit from what I've heard and seen of them. And they weren't even like, she doesn't have a signed copy, so that makes it void.
Yeah, and in her lawsuit, her attorney Ann Callis argues that the NDA should be voided,
right?
And so that's been one of her arguments the whole time in the lawsuit, is that it should be voided because it doesn't stand up. And so that's part of what they're arguing. And so then I didn't read the whole thing. I read parts of it just because I knew what he was doing. I knew what these tactics were. So I wrote about it the other day, and there's some, just not the highlights, because there are no highlights in this. It's the lowlights. But the things of importance, I guess I should say, is his team argues that when he met Grant 2019, she was not taking care of her parents, nor was she dealing with profound grief from her parents' death or struggling financially. And the memorandum claims that a foreclosure action against Janel Grant and her parents proved that her dad died in 2017 and her mother passed before that. So apparently there's an expiration date on grief, according to Vince McMahon.
That's news to me.
Yeah, apparently there's an expiration date that we didn't know about. So
I would love to get in on that then, because
yeah, right. Yeah, definitely.
Get the out of here.
So Ann Callis, of course, had a statement about that. She said Vince McMahon has never known a storyline that he doesn't twist to fit his own shameful narrative. Her father was in in-home hospice during his final days, where Janel continued to care for him around the clock. Prior to his death, she had been caring for her blind, wheelchair-bound mother, using the grief of someone who lost both of her parents as a new level of disgusting. And then he also claimed in the filing that she was living with her longtime fiance, Brian Goncalves. I'm probably not pronouncing that correctly. They lived in the same building as McMahon, and they lived 4 floors below him. And he said that she would often come visit him at all hours and then go back to her fiance, and they both knew that they were in relationships with other people or some. And then he was like, well, how, if I coerced her into stuff, why wouldn't she tell him that I was doing these things? And so Ann Callis says that she was not dating Brian at the time. Her ex-boyfriend allowed her to stay in the apartment as she rebuilt her life and resumed post taking care of her parents. She had no job and no other financial support to lean back on, and so he took her in. He also brings up the filing also brings up the love letter. Make sure we definitely use air quotations with that.
Air quotes.
That's the because in the filing it says, in fact, in a love letter, plaintiff wrote to defendant shortly before the parties ended their relationship. Plaintiff described defendant as my best friend, my love, my everything, praising him for being wonderful, tender, and vulnerable heart on your sleeve soul that you really are. Callis had also previously released a statement about the publication of that letter. She said, frankly, it's pretty disgusting that Vince's weeks late attempt to defend his horrendous behavior he claims to this day never happened, is to try to showcase letters that Vince himself coerced her to write. His psychological torture of her continues, as is typical of abusive predators who respond to women speaking out with increased threats. While Janel isn't a stranger to his intimidation tactics, this is a new low even for him. And then, so then there's some stuff about how he doubles down, and he obviously vehemently and categorically denies all allegations of wrongdoing in the complaint and all that good stuff, of course. And then that's where he calls her a liar. He said that allegations and claims will be disproven and plaintiff will be exposed for the liar that she is. And so on Wednesday, Callis filed a motion to strike McMahon's arbitration request. She also requested that he be admonished for using the court to mudsling. She says, even if McMahon's falsities concerning Janel's private life were true, they are not. These statements have no bearing on the merits of Janel's claims, let alone the motion. McMahon's statements have no place in the motion, which should be concerned solely with whether this dispute must be submitted to arbitration. Vince's lawyer released the statement late Wednesday afternoon. Her name is Jessica Rosenberg. She said, plaintiff had no right to bring this case into public court, but did so anyway. Now that she chose this public forum to falsely accuse Mr. McMahon, she wants to silence his ability to respond. She can't have it both ways.
Okay. So. I mean, okay. Like, sure. In some like weird reality, some bizarro world, she has every right to bring charges against an abusive sex predator who tried to traffic her across state lines or did.
Right.
That's a federal crime. Like, it's a federal crime.
You know, the feds are involved.
But it's just the nads on this dude. Like, I mean, really? Like, and he got himself a lady lawyer so that he is supposed to. She's like, and Callis is totally right. Because she made the point right there is that he is doing things to it. Like, he's trying to make Janel look bad. He's trying to call her a whore. Like,
basically,
look at her love letters to me and it's like, okay, well, even if that were true, you're her boss, so you're a shitty boss,
right?
Because you shouldn't be engaging in sexual relationships with your employees unless that's HR and all kinds of other things that are involved. Like, no, just I know they had to respond by. I'm pretty sure that this is what they would consider the response that they had by whatever deadline that was coming up.
He had further. I think he had till May 28th or something like that. Like, he had a little bit later. WWE still has not put in. I don't think they put in their response, and then Laurinaitis has. I don't think Laurinaitis has technically done his official this type where he did a memorandum to respond. I think he's just been like, I can confirm some of Janel's stories, but also I'm a victim.
Yeah, well, he did it in the way that, I mean, he is just from all things. I mean, there's been a lot of Friday afternoon news dump. A bunch of people were reporting about how much stock that Nick Khan and Vince McMahon had. And the thing is people need to understand about stocks. Like, just because I put a stock up for sale or a bunch of them up for sale does not mean that someone just instantly buys them.
Yeah, that's what they're saying, that Nick Khan's stuff has not sold. He's just made them available, and it doesn't necessarily mean anything. But
I think BJ Bethel was saying that he started to put some of that stock on sale as far back as September of last year. Right. And that's true for a few people. Now, putting that much up makes you wonder what is about to, what shoe is about to drop.
The timing seems, I think the timing is what kind of got everybody
trying to get it in a private setting is that says to me that, like, I know they're gonna settle. They're gonna try and settle
They're
settle
trying
this
to. They're
case.
getting. That's why he's trying. Like the first step is
But
trying to
going
move
before an
to private
arbitrator is not the same
arbitration.
thing as going before a judge. A judge has a whole, like, arbitrators are private like, it's a private. No.
That's why he's trying to move it there. He doesn't want it.
Everything about what he's doing right now makes him look more guilty. The only thing that's good about all of what he's doing is that it's admissible when the time comes.
That's what I was thinking. I was like, you're putting all this out there and it's gonna, like, we all
You know
see
what?
it.
Let him keep acting like that, because that is evidence against him. He's establishing his own case against him. If he wants to keep doing that, he's just making her job easier.
Well, I kind of thought that too. And then it comes out later. So this came out Wednesday. Or wait, no, was it Thursday? No, Thursday it came out that Vince has hired a law firm, a PR firm, who has worked with a variety of people, including Harvey Weinstein and R. Kelly. And they briefly worked with them, probably enough to, make some money off of them. And then once they realized how bad it was, they cut ties with them. But yeah,
like,
and hopefully they'll do, that's probably what they're doing with Vince, is they're probably getting some money off of him, and then they'll probably cut ties once it gets closer or once more information comes out. They'll be like, you know what? Not worth it. So I'm going to make money while I can. But hiring a PR firm who is known for that speaks volumes to me, to work to be associated with that. And one thing that has come out in all of this that I think a lot of people don't realize, and I myself had forgotten, was Nick Khan worked in Hollywood.
Yeah.
He worked with the agency who used to send women to Harvey Weinstein. So Nick Khan has a connection to Harvey Weinstein as well. Nick Khan he's corporate officer number one.
Like, they were both in Hollywood together, and they were like some of the people that the Entourage, and I watched Entourage. Like, I mean, it was a little over the top, but probably not that over the top. Like, it's definitely was probably on par with some of the grossness that goes on, just like the grossness that goes on behind the scenes with all of these, like, kind of carny endeavors. I mean, Hollywood is just a really rich carny endeavor when you think about it. It's a stupid rich, but notwithstanding, I don't know. It all seems very weird to me. And, like, this is their response. And, like, let's private arbitrate it. Let's do these things. I'm putting a bunch of my stock up for sale. Nick Khan is putting up a bunch of his stock for sale. Like, it just, John Laurinaitis, it's questionable, but a lot of us think he's already rolled and that he's working with the feds potentially because he's trying to save his own ass in every way possible because he knows he's totally effed. I mean, he essentially, he said that Janelle was right. And, like you said, he made himself a victim. And then, I just sort of lost my train of thought with
That's okay. I do that too with this. There's so much happening, which is the point. They want you to get distracted. They want you to be talking about Nick Khan selling his stock and being like, ooh, what's this? And not talking about the fact that Vince is trying to take this private. He's hired a PR firm who's worked with some really awful people. And so they're trying, that's what we've talked about this. The WWE is very much look over here, not over here type of thing, and they're already doing this. They want you to talk about what Nick Khan is doing.
Yeah, I think that is because, again, that's been on sale for a lot of that's apparently been on sale for because BJ
and I think
was
it just wasn't
tweeting that they talked about it. Him and John Pollock talked about it or whatever, like back in September.
The Sportico article that came out Friday is, I think, what it made it look like that both of them were selling their shares at the same time, and it kind of made
it like, and it just happened.
And and it turns out it was the sales for what Vince was selling. That's the stuff that we already knew about, and now that he's below 5%, he doesn't have to report it anymore. So we don't at this point where we will probably not know if he is selling more stock because he doesn't have to report it under 5%. And then the Nick Khan stuff has been apparently, like you said, has been ongoing. They just because they're for sale doesn't mean that anybody has purchased them yet. but it does at least kind of bring some things into focus with Nick Khan. It reminds people that, hey, he too has a connection with Harvey Weinstein. He has been involved in some shady stuff because he's been in the entertainment business for a really long time. According to Ann Callis has confirmed that he is corporate officer number 1.
Right.
So that's also, because I think what people keep forgetting, and I know you and I talk about it every single time we talk about this case, Vince McMahon is not the only person named in that lawsuit. John Laurinaitis is not the only one that lawsuit is named against. Just because they're both gone doesn't mean that's over. WWE is part of this lawsuit. They are specifically named in this lawsuit. So that is an important thing to remember as we keep going forward. Just because Vince is gone doesn't mean that WWE is in the clear. And I know they're trying, and I understand as a business, you have to move forward. You have to, but they keep throwing Triple H out there. Like, he was on there Friday night. He was out there to announce the first round of the draft picks. Him and Cody Rhodes did them together.
Oh yeah,
I don't like
meaningless draft time at WWE.
Yeah, because they're playing off of the NFL draft, which is smart. But then in the draft, hardly anybody moved between brands. So
yeah, but the draft is like, I mean, obvious. It sounds funny to say it about a wrestling situation, but I think for the last, I mean, more than even regular silly wrestling crap, like the draft is a joke. It doesn't matter. It's like they draft everybody and they do the thing to jump, like, to piggyback on the NFL draft because of whatever. Right.
And they don't do
and
it
then
every
literally
year.
Next SmackDown, someone that got drafted to Raw will be there. And
yeah, like they only a few people, like from the draft started Friday night and then continues tomorrow. And of course they do the supplemental picks after the show, but it was like only a few people switch brands. Like Seth Rollins is going to switch brands. He'll be on SmackDown. Ricochet went to SmackDown. But like most people are staying in place, and even like the supplemental drafts, like after the draft was over, like they drafted Cedric and Ashante the Adonis, who are already on SmackDown, and they also had Braun Breaker beat Cedric Alexander in 17 seconds.
I saw that. I
wrote about that too. Hopefully he doesn't meet the same fate as Cameron Grimes, because I wrote that. But yeah,
Cam's been on fire this week, folks. We retweet her articles from our account there, so make sure you're checking out her articles. She works really, really hard.
I've got more stuff going. I did, in case you missed it with all of this stuff, I did have it in my interview with Kiera Hogan.
Yeah, I saw that. That was awesome.
That was really, she was great. I love talking to her. We had so many cool things to talk about. We talked about obviously the importance of Ashe wrestling, which is why I was interviewing her, because she was there for that show. We talked about having that type of a platform. We talked about her coming when she came out. We talked about the Nyla Rose stuff and being in the locker room with somebody who had a warning, and just how it made her feel, just saying it was awful and she was disappointed and all that stuff. And we talked about our Athena as a champion and how Athena's a locker room leader. She had a lot of really cool stuff to say about Athena. We talked about the ROH women's division. We talked about her dream opponent, which I was a little surprised who she said was her dream opponent, especially because there was some friction between them a few years ago. And so I was a little surprised by that, but she genuinely seems to mean it. And so, yeah, we had a really great conversation. She was amazing. And then I'm going to work on transcribing another one. I believe the next interview that I will be putting out is the one with Kevin Knight, because I want to try to get it out before BOSJ starts.
Nice.
We talked about BOSJ. We talked about Motor City Machine Guns. We talked about Kushida. We talked about all kinds of stuff. So I've got 3 more interviews on the way, but I think Kevin's will be next.
Nice. So that's great.
Out for that. I'll get to a couple of comments before we switch gears here.
It's loud here today. Goodness.
I don't hear it, so hopefully they're not hearing
it.
Okay,
good. As long as you don't hear it, I'm like, oh my gosh.
Hassan is here.
Hi,
we are glad to have you with us. Welcome. And I'll go back to your other comment in just a second. So Brad says it's amazing that Nikki put his stocks up at the same time that the Weinstein was overturned. He's deep in that one from his time at CAA. His hands are so dirty from everything he's been a part of.
It's Brad, and Brad is sort of like adjacent to some of that stuff, so he really understands it does. It's telling. But it's all the stuff that's moving around. It's like, now that you say that, you mentioned the WWE thing that like we try to hammer on, is that it's not just these people, it's also the company that's named. You he can't move it to private arbitration because he can't separate himself from the company.
Yeah, I don't think they can. I don't know how that would...
You can't just arbitrate a portion of the complaint.
Right. It's one whole lawsuit.
It's a whole
involving,
complaint.
Yeah,
you can't
involving multiple entities.
If you want to talk to her lawyer about a settlement, then you can, but you don't have, he can't like take his part of the lawsuit out of the lawsuit and arbitrate it separately. It's in the same lawsuit. That's not a thing. It's literally, the more I was like thinking about it, and then you said it again. It's like, you can't, you're literally trying to cherry pick the lawsuit and just litigate that part of it into your, this shows you the level of freaking narcissism and madness. Like, this is all, I would use all of this against him. I would use all of this against him. I know she's smart, but, and the whole thing, Nick Khan, like, essentially divesting from, and I mean, that will affect the market for TKO stock just because of his position in the company. That's a signal to investors that there's not because Vince, everyone expects Vince to do whatever he's going to do. But when you have the guy that's still in the position of, he's like president of the company, right?
Yeah, and so Brandon Thurston actually brought up a really good point yesterday, because he was saying that him selling these shares is not the alarm that people think it is.
Yeah.
But he was saying what people should be talking about is how his contract with WWE is up in August of 2025. Okay. That's what we should be focusing on. And so that is definitely something to keep an eye on.
That's interesting.
And especially as this case gets closer, and because like BJ said, it's going to take at least a good year before this even sees a courtroom, just because because of all the work that goes into it. And it's not just, and again, it's not just Vince, it's not just John Laurinaitis, it's WWE as a whole. The feds are involved with something. likely related to the sex trafficking. We don't know for sure, but they're involved to an extent. So it's going to take some time. So a lot could happen between now and when Nick Khan's contract comes up in August of 2025. So that is something to keep an eye on for sure.
And it is a little scary because of the Harvey Weinstein overturn thing, but they are going to retry that.
They're going to try to.
Then he's still in jail for another rape. So at least he's still in jail.
Yes, the LA trial, he was sentenced to 16 years. So no matter what happens between now and if this case is retried, he will still be in jail the entire time because he is serving the 16-year sentence for the LA case. And he was in the hospital this weekend for health problems. He's been in very poor health for a while. So, because some people were like, "Oh, now he's suddenly in the hospital." I mean, maybe I wouldn't put anything past him, but from what I understand, he's been in poor health for years, for the last.
Yeah,
few
he
years.
doesn't seem like someone who took good care of himself. If you see him.
And it seems like, of course, being in prison has only, contributed to it, and so that probably factored into some of it. But
don't be a sex predator, I guess.
Yeah, right. But Bill Cosby's got his case overturned too, and he's out of prison. And the whole reason that they're out, the whole reason this was overturned is because there were too many witnesses. They let three women. They let three. Go ahead. I would say they let three women testify. And because their argument is they didn't testify about this specific thing, that's how they overturned it. Even so, basically, he had too many women testify about what he did to them, and they somehow found legally how they could get around that. And if they retry this, keep in mind this means these women have to relive this once again all over, and they will have to talk about this all over again and reopen everything that happened to them. And so this is putting these survivors back in, they're having to deal with this all over again while they're in the midst of trying to heal from it in the beginning. And then they had the courage to come forward and speak about it publicly. And if this case gets retried, they're gonna have to do it all over again.
This is incredibly
and you wonder why women don't want to come forward.
Right. Yeah, why don't we tell anybody? How come you're saying it now? This is really tenuous to me, though, this overturning, because essentially establishing a pattern of behavior is part of building a case.
Exactly.
Is that
Exactly. And that's what these
you
women were
need
doing.
these
They were
other
establishing
people
patterns.
that's like, they're not, who care? Like,
Well,
as
and
one of my
that's
friends
also them getting their day
on
in
left
court.
Twitter put it is they overturned it because too many women said too many mean things about him. And I'm like,
Essentially, what it feels like.
but beyond that is like, you're trying to set a precedent that establishing a pattern of behavior, and like,
Right.
I question this judge, this person that overturned this.
Yeah.
That's
Me too.
and it's terrifying as a lady. Like, look around at what's going on with ladies' rights in the world or in America right now, and all the stuff with these predators and the way that it's really scary, because it's essentially like, you're telling me what to do with my body. You're letting sex predators off the hook because too many ladies said that, and it's disconcerting.
It
to
is.
say the least.
It is.
As a lady, as a human lady in the world today in America, wandering the streets going, nobody's telling men what to do with their penises.
Right. Well, and then there's apparently that
It's a
hypothetical,
simple one.
there's that hypothetical thing that's going around, like, that they're asking women, would you rather go into the woods with a bear or a man? And most of them are saying they'd rather go into the woods with a bear. And men
I'd
are
rather
getting
go in the woods
upset.
with a bear.
Men are getting upset about it and proving the point. And nobody is saying that a bear could not kill you, but a bear will not rape you. And that's the whole point of all of this. And they're
like
having,
I have a chance against a bear because of like, I mean, I'm pretty good at like, but it's, I don't know.
No,
a bear isn't going to commit a crime against me and then get off scot-free. Like, a bear is just
and somebody made that point yesterday.
A bear is just being a bear.
If you're attacked by a bear, somebody will believe you and they will not question you. But if you tell them you were attacked by a man, you're going to get questioned, and a lot of people are not going to believe you, and that's a problem. That's it right there. You're not going to get questioned if you say you got attacked by a bear. Nobody's going to question that. Nobody's going to say you're a liar. Nobody's going to tell you to prove it.
Nobody's going to say the bear.
Nobody's going to tell you that you're going to ruin his life if you tell him, if you go public with this. Nobody's going to tell you you're going to make him lose his job and make his friends and family know what a terrible person they are. Well, not person, but you know how terrible they are. Everybody will know.
Oh, and a bear is just being a bear in the woods, like when you're out
apparently
there.
For some people this is just men being men, but
that
I know
it's 2024 and a half almost. We're 25 or almost 25 years, a quarter of the way into the new century. We have the sum total of the Earth's knowledge at our fingertips every single day. Like, we could cut it out.
Stop it. We're that simple, because apparently it's not.
Can we
apparently
just
it's not
have
very
a fair justice system that, like, this is because it's going to it always disproportionately affects people, but this is seeing these men do this right now is very frustrating. Vince McMahon, talk about life and wrestling mirroring each other pretty bad. Like, this is yet another example, and it's so interesting. I just got done reading Irv Muchnick's book, Babylon. I think I was telling you about that.
Right.
He's been writing about Vince and this shit since the 80s. He wrote about Rita Chatterton back then. He wrote about Tom Cole back then. He wrote a lot about the pre-steroid case. He was writing about their abuse of steroids in the WWF. It was really fascinating to read. That book was like, I almost feel like the Dark Side of the Ring guys took that book as like a kind of a model,
they might have,
because that is like Dark Side of the Ring before it was a thing.
Yeah,
that book.
I can imagine.
But he did such an incredible job because he's like a legitimate writer.
Does he talk about the Jimmy Snuka stuff too?
Oh yeah,
I don't think you can't write about a book about Vince and not include that. But
was one of the loudest voices, and he eviscerates Vince and the company over that situation.
Good. He should.
Yeah, I love his narrative. He is
I
like
really need to check that out. That sounds
you would
fantastic.
again. I think that you and Nikki would really dig that book. It's just
Probably.
essentially it's a compilation of his articles from over the years about all the the ways that wrestling screws people up. So again, like Dark Side, where it's like, yes, but they wouldn't have had those early deaths if they hadn't been on the pills and they hadn't been on the steroids and all these things. He's been banging that drum since like the early 80s. And so this book is like a compilation of a bunch of his writings about how they get away with it and things like that. Because he's like a legitimate sports writer who also has this interest and kept writing these things, and they ended up on like the cover of Time magazine. I mean, but this has got all of that.
Well, and
plus
it's
a
all
couple
relevant.
of like footnotes from him.
It's all relevant now because of what's happening.
Very
and
relevant.
It's extremely relevant. These are things that this shows you. Again, WWE and Vince have both been involved in these things for decades. And
reading
people have been trying to tell you, but you don't want to listen to them.
No,
and they find ways. They find ways to get around it. And so that, of course, you know, when this lawsuit first came out, you and I were like, how is he going to get out of it? Because he always does. He always finds a way. And he's a very rich man, and he's selling off stocks, and making him even richer. And he's hiring these PR firms that are very expensive, and they work with terrible people to try to repair their images. And so, I mean, I do have some hope that, you know, he will finally be brought to justice this time around, especially because the feds are involved. But the feds were involved in the steroid case. But there was also, you know, there's a lot more then. And I think things are different now than they were 30 years ago, 40 years ago. So
I think it was interesting because Dave has been sort of on the fence or been non-committal, but actually he said to Garrett on Friday that he's like, I don't see a way out of this for him right now with what's going. Finally, after all these years of me watching him do this too, and being you know, he's like, you could see the way he got out of that this one, and you could see the way how he could be. He's like, but this he's like, the gap is like narrowing huge on this one. And I was like, I think that if Dave is saying that, I actually will take that perspective because he has been following Vince for so long.
Sure. Right. And I think this time, because of the sex trafficking part.
Yeah, that's the big one.
And crossing straight lines and the Mann Act and all of that. I think that.
Well, and also the financial shit. You cannot underestimate the shit he did with the finances. I'm telling you, like, the only rich people to ever go to jail are the ones that rob other rich people.
Yeah. Yes. You have said that many times. And you are correct.
Ask Bernie Madoff. Ask, like, Martha Stewart went to prison for 2 years and for doing the exact same thing that, like, all the dudes were doing. I'm like, I don't know. We'll see. I hope that he finally stops getting away with it.
Me too. I hope so.
I really do. And because I don't want to talk about it anymore. I don't want to see people dying on the hill of defending him anymore.
Yeah, that's frustrating to see. And again, you and I have talked about this many times. These are just the people we know about. There are countless others who do not want to come forward for a multitude of reasons, and they don't have to. A lot of them are just trying to rebuild their lives and put their lives back together and put this shit behind them. But there are so many. I mean, I think there are way more people who know about this or who were involved in some that he's done things to, and these are just unfortunately the ones that we know about. And it's very sad that even this number of women had to deal with any of that, and there's probably dozens and dozens of more who also had to deal with it. And so it's time for him to stop getting away with this shit, and for WWE to stop shielding it and allowing some of the stuff to happen. And then I want to come back to a comment from Hassan where he said, it seems like he's trying to sabotage Janel's reputation and to scare her and scare other victims not to come out. And that's exactly what he's doing. This is a tactic. If you watch, this is standard. If you watch, especially if you watch any type of crime shows and Datelines and things like this is what we see, these tactics. And we see it played out. You know, Harvey Weinstein had these tactics. R. Kelly had these tactics. Bill Cosby had these tactics. Most most predators, that's what they do. They try to scare their victims, their survivors rather, into being quiet.
They continue the same behavior that they were doing when they were getting away with it. It's the same behavior. It's the same mentality where they don't think they've done anything wrong. They think that the person involved is, again, victim shaming. I mean, scaring, intimidation tactics. It's the same thing even Donald Trump is doing right now with his cases that are related to sexual crimes and or at least.
Yeah, we're definitely watching that play out too. We're watching it play out, and that's again.
And that dude's running for president again. Like
again, and he's friends with Vince McMahon.
Big friends. You should. That
he's a WWE Hall of Famer.
Irv destroys those two. It's hilarious.
Good. They're both
because he points out their relationship a lot and how similar they are. And when you watch these three things play out, it's almost like you could be talking about either one. If you
really could, you could take one name
out
and insert it with the other one.
It's because it's the same exact kind of things that are going on, and it's really like, it's weird. We are living in wild times.
There are also people that seem to try to one up their friends and one up the other one, and it's just like they do it in the most horrible ways.
Yeah, right. Good choices.
But yes. So so that's the latest on that, and we'll keep talking about it. It's not fun, but we can't pretend that it's not happening just because we like the wrestles. We have to.
We can't forget. Yeah. And Janel is out there, and Ashley Massaro is out there.
Yeah, and Janel is. She's out there and seeing these. Well, I don't know how much she's saying. I don't know that she has social media, but I can imagine she probably knows that there are people who are blindly supporting Vince McMahon because they like the Mr. McMahon character, or they believe that women are just she's just out to get money, and especially when you have people like Kevin Nash.
We were ever doing,
well, and then you have people like Kevin Nash going on his podcast and essentially saying she just wants money. She was in love with him.
There's better ways to try to get money than to put your personal trauma out there. It just doesn't make logical sense when I hear people say that. It's like, if I want to extort somebody, there's way easier ways than putting myself out in front and saying somebody did these horrible things to me.
Right. Yeah.
That doesn't even make sense.
And if you think that people are I would urge you to go to Rain's website, and you can look at all the statistics that are out there about how that there's only 2% of people make up these claims, and that it's not as prevalent as you think. But as far as it's not as prevalent as you think as people making stuff up and saying that these things happen to them, because why would you put yourself through all of that? Exactly. You see it. You see the Harvey Weinstein thing, these women, and with Bill Cosby, all these women came forward and put all that out there only for their stuff to get overturned. Why would you, if you saw that, why would you come forward? If you see how people are defending a mandate, they're defending men they don't know. They don't know they exist.
Billionaires
doesn't know you exist.
Bazillionaires.
Donald Trump doesn't know you exist.
He doesn't care about you.
Yeah, they don't care about you.
He's super wealthy, and he doesn't give a crap about you.
Mm-mm.
You're just doing his dirty work for him.
Right. Exactly.
You're simp.
Imagine being a simp for those people.
No, it's horrible. They're everywhere. I can't avoid it. It's terrible. I try to follow my people on Twitter, and I just can't get around it. It's
I've just been. Yeah,
I always say
some random account told me the other day. I don't remember what they were like. They were trying to say that Vince was innocent or some shit. So I was just I nearly responded, but I was like, it's just not even worth it. So I just blocked him on the spot because I was like, I don't have time. I'm not spending my energy on this. And of course, I had somebody who commented on my article about Nyla about how transgender people don't exist or can't be. Yeah. And so I was like, I nearly I came real close to just telling them to fuck off. And I was like, you know what? It's not even worth that. I'm just going to block it and move on. It's not worth my energy.
They call it homophobic and transphobic and all these things. And I'm like, no, it's not phobia. You can be afraid of spiders. You can be afraid of freaking heights.
Right.
you're an asshole. Stop
Right.
it.
They don't want.
You're anti-human. You're an anti-humanist is what you are. You are no. You're not afraid of the thing.
No, they
you're
aren't.
an ignorant, inhumane person with no empathy. So go away and shut up.
Yes. That's why I was just
But
like, it's not even
again,
worth it.
it's like you don't want to give that person like you do it right, and I think that's important for people to remember.
Oh no, there's times I really
feed the
just want to
troll.
respond, and I've had responses typed out, and then I'm like, or even not
Erase.
even typed out. I'm like, you know what? It's not worth it because they don't care. They're either being a troll or they don't care. And there's no sense in engaging in people like that.
Well, and you don't want to give them a platform. Like I always remind myself, like don't platform these people. Do not give them the satisfaction of being platformed,
especially if they are a blue check mark and they're getting money
off
of engagement.
Like you know when you're talking to somebody who is like an open-minded person. These are not people who want their minds changed. They're not people who are going. I mean, and this is like a universal trait that's happening with masses a lot, where it's like pick a side and be tribalist and do all that stuff. But these are not people that who are open to having their minds changed about this subject.
No, so they just want to argue.
They're trying to bait.
And then if they have a blue check mark, they're trying to get paid from Elon. And so they say things so that you continue to interact with them, or you
another billionaire who doesn't care about you.
Oh, God.
And who doesn't pay his taxes.
Fucking worse too. I hate that man.
So
but yeah.
Yeah. All right.
So that's been that.
That's been the crappy Vince. Well, we have to keep talking about it because, like you said, they're doing the distraction thing a lot.
Well, and that's the thing. They want you to forget. They want you to, and that's the thing about, I don't want to go to, I mean, Tony Khan's comment the other day raised a whole bunch of kerfluffle about stuff, but no, WWE is trying to pretend this lawsuit does not exist. They are not acknowledging their part in the lawsuit, at least not publicly yet. And so it is, so they don't want you to talk about it. So that's why we have to talk about it. They don't want you to be reminded. They want you to think of, that's why there's Triple H Mania. So they keep putting Triple H on TV. They brought in Stephanie for a minute so that you can be like, oh yeah, Stephanie's here. Stephanie's corporate officer number 3, but all right. Yeah. So
look, we have a lady on our TV. It's okay.
Yeah. So
a lady executive that we buried after we fired her last year.
Right. And she's corporate officer number 3 and married to the face of the company that you keep trying to push the Triple H era. But yeah, so we'll continue to talk about it because they don't want you to talk about it. Right. And that's enough of that for today.
Yes.
Thank you for sitting with us through all that. And we'll move on to some other things like
from Tony Khan.
Tony Khan taking bumps.
Yeah, I thought he wasn't going to do that.
I think that he had no intention of that, and I don't think he's going to be a regular TV character. I think this was a one-off thing to tell this story. I think it was hey, let's get some heat back on Jack, since a lot of people are cheering him. Let's get some heat on him. Let's get some heat on the Elite. Because they had to, especially because Tony Khan's been at the center of all of this, all along. And so I feel like it was a one-off thing. I don't think it's going to be a thing where he is on TV they practically told you that last night in Collision when they gave you the update, was that Tony Khan can only run the business remotely. He can run it from he's not going to be in the building. He's not on the premises. Of course, that leaves the Elite to kind of run roughshod on that opens that part of the story up. But so Tony essentially wrote himself off of TV last night when they said, he can't travel. He's working remotely. He has to do everything from Jacksonville. So they pretty much wrote him off TV last night. And I think that, I mean, sure, I don't think he's off TV for good, depending on how the story unfolds. He could potentially be back on TV in a character role. But I don't think this is going to be something we see very often. I don't think he's going to become a Mr. Khan character. I don't foresee any of that. I think the people who were panicking over that and calling him a liar for showing up on TV, you're way too dramatic over something that, I mean, if you didn't like it, fine. Right. That's your taste. If that's not for you, fine. I enjoyed it. I thought it was very entertaining. I thought it was very funny. But I don't see Tony Khan being on TV all the time. And like I said, he gave himself an out last night. And I agree. I think it was needed as well, Benkin. I think it told the story. I think it moved the story forward. It cemented the Elite as heels, and it's going to get cemented even more because Kenny Omega is coming next week. And I think that Kenny Omega is going to be there to announce the Owen Hart Cup tournament. I think that's what he's there for. And then I think he's going to take a Rainmaker. And that's how
really.
I think
he's gonna take a bump.
He's not, because he's already said on his Twitch that he needs surgery, so he's not coming back. Like he said on his Twitch the other night, apparently he didn't even know he was gonna be in Winnipeg next week until it was announced. They didn't tell him.
Oh,
that's
wow.
how he found out.
Interesting. I mean, my assumption, because I knew he needed surgery, because I knew he had talked about that publicly, was that this was just going to be a talking segment or something, that he's going to come out and, or maybe do like a New Japan style like point, but you think he's going to, that'd be awesome. I mean,
that's how because Okada took his spot.
The heat would be
Okada took his spot in the Elite. And so I think they have obviously years of years of a relationship. They've had put on some of the best matches in wrestling history. They have an incredible feud. And so I see him taking a Rainmaker. Because I think Okada can protect him. I don't think he probably can't do a whole lot in the ring, but I think Okada can do enough. And Okada's one of the safest people you can, just like the Bucks doing that to Tony Khan. Those are two of the safest people you can put in the ring with Tony Khan to protect him. They knew what they were doing. I think had it been other people, Tony,
since they were old enough,
right? I don't think that Tony would have gotten into the ring with just anybody. Because what he did with what Jack Perry did was not super physical. I mean, it wasn't like. And it's hard to get really hurt off of that. I mean, he could, but the Bucks put him in the TK driver, which stop calling it the Meltzer driver. As soon as they turned heels, they renamed it the TK driver. So make sure you call it correctly. It's not the Meltzer driver. Hasn't been since they turned heel. It is the TK driver.
They have made a very, very
the TK
specific
driver on TK. Like that to me is hilarious.
That is funny. I mean,
then you have Okada who's doing like the little outsiders pose at them when they did it. Like, I thought it just played out really well. And and I would agree that Jack Perry's character wouldn't work if he didn't do that to TK. Now it's exciting to see what happens next. Exactly. And I agree with Benkin. Okada did make it better. That's why I think because he didn't get involved. The Elite and the Bucks and Jack Perry did. So I think that's another reason Okada is going to be the one to do it next week, is because he has he needs to be the one to do something, since the three of them got physical last week and Okada didn't really. And then Okada has the history with Kenny. And so my prediction is that Kenny eats a Rainmaker.
Cool. In Winnipeg. Awesome.
Yeah, it just so happens to be. Son said, I keep trying to convince myself that Kenny is ready and he's working us. Man, I wish that were the case.
I wish that were the case, great. And I think even Kenny would rather.
I would rather, if I'm going to be worked, that's how I want to be worked.
Yeah, seriously. I don't want him to have horrible intestinal surgeries and stuff, because that's just a bummer.
Yeah.
And I don't want I want him to go out on his own terms. I mean, you don't always get to, but it would be nice for a guy like that at that level, who's had that kind of an influence on where we are today.
He's the reason. He's one of the few reasons this company is even here.
Yeah, definitely.
He was involved in it. But no, Tony Khan will not be having surgery to repair a disc. I have not. No.
I think it's funny that he was in kayfabe at the NFL draft.
I think that you have to make
because
tell that
funny.
Story.
It was funny,
hilarious.
And I was actually I thought somebody, because some people were getting douchey about it on Twitter, but what I thought was funny was BJ was saying that one of his players that he drafted saw the pictures of him, and because he's not a wrestling fan and he didn't know and whatever, he was like, hey, I just want to, give a shout out to my new boss.
They
asked get better
soon. A reporter asked him if he wanted to send any well wishes to Tony, because he took they
okay, that's
driver.
okay, yeah, right.
So he asked, there was a clip, and he said, the guy asked, he's like, do you want to send him well wishes? Because he took a Meltzer driver in the ring last night, and he was just like, what? And so like he thought it was, and I'm like, somebody was like, they should have shown him that clip. But yeah, like he had no idea.
It was hilarious.
And I think one of the things I think that sold it the best.
At least he's a nice young man. That's really cool.
Yes, that is true. I think one of the funniest things that came out of that was Shad Khan coming out there
to check on his son.
Like, that was my favorite, though, is Carly Bravo's reaction, because Carly turned and realized it was Shad, and just the look on his face was hilarious. Because he didn't know it was Shad, and I don't think people knew Shad was coming. Clearly, Shad's in on it.
He's got a spectacular mustache, that dad.
He's got a meme out of it. It's been memed so much this weekend.
I love it. I'm grateful for. I mean, when you posted that picture, you like read my mind for our slate.
Yes.
So if you guys look at our thumbnail for this video here,
I couldn't find a clear picture.
Sam dropped that picture into our thing to get it made, and I was like, yes.
Yeah, because I was
sitting there. In my head, I love it.
I couldn't find a clear picture. I kept finding like screenshots, or it was video, and so I asked my friend. I was like, I was asking in another Slack. I was like, have you guys been able to find a clear picture of him? And my friend sent me those 3 screenshots, and I was like, you were the best. I'm gonna try to get this as a slate for Sunday's show, because I don't think that there's anything else because I'm not gonna put Vince's face ever.
Well,
if
no,
if I can avoid it, I'm never putting his face up there. So I'm like, well, what can I? So I was like, what can we put up here? And I was like, oh God, the Tony Khan picture, of course.
So
like,
old school.
And it worked out well, because it went right into you with your big reveal of your tribute to Tony.
My tribute to Tony. I had to do it.
And I think Brad mentioned it earlier in the show, asking if we saw the picture last night. They posted late last night. It's Roderick Strong and Tony Khan posted.
Oh yeah, the neck strong picture. I did.
They were both wearing the neck brace, and it said that they were neck strong. I thought that was great.
It was very funny because someone, whoever, maybe it was Brad who quote tweeted it, because whoever it was, they said, I kind of expected this, and it's super funny. And I was like, it's hilarious.
And the Undisputed Kingdom is like, Tony's neck strong. We're thinking of you, buddy. And like Mercedes quote tweeted it and was like, oh, I hope you get better, boss. And like, and then Nyla,
people are having fun with it.
Nyla and the Butcher took it the other direction. They're like, oh, well, you have a broken neck. You can't help in the draft. Let us make drafts for you. And I think Butcher said his name was what did he say? His name was Randy Jacksonville, I think is what he said his name was. He's going to tell people he's Randy Jacksonville, and he makes the new, he's here to help with the draft or something like that. And so they were like drafting back and forth.
Nothing like some cross promotion for your
especially after that podcast dropped earlier from another podcast dropped this week, or maybe it was the end of last week, and it picked up traction about how WWE uses PR and how they use content creators to stir the pot, and just how they because Nick Khan obviously he's been in entertainment for 30 years, so he uses PR differently than AEW, because AEW's only been around for 5 years. And so it was just talking about some of that and how that plays into stuff. And then you have Tony Khan who finally realized, hey, I can use the NFL to get some PR. Like, and he went because I think I saw something last night that Chris Rosen told him that he should auction off his neck brace for charity. So I think he's going to, because of that. Yeah. And then like even Pat McAfee was talking about it on his show, like early before that comment came out. It was prior to that, but like when he was wearing the neck brace, he was like, oh my God, he was laughing. And that's when one of the guys was like, well, somebody should tell him he shouldn't move his neck. I'm like, oh my God, it's just a bit. Like,
Guys, just internet
it's a funny bit. It's not meant to be serious at all.
If you don't understand what's going on, just internet it. You're looking at it on the thing, the very thing that you could go, why is Tony Khan wearing a neck brace into? You could literally ask the very thing you're viewing the video on to tell you why.
Right.
It's like, stop it.
Exactly.
Oh my gosh. It's amazing how people will believe that like the pyramids are superconductors, but they can't like deal with a Tony Khan bit.
Listen, the aliens are listening. Be careful to what you say.
I know. I know. They've
already
all
attacked
batteries.
our show one time. They've already attacked. Right. They attacked our opening.
You know what? Maybe I should switch hats and put my tinfoil hat back on just for protection.
Put it back on. What are you doing? See, that's why the aliens attacked. You should have put it on your you're gonna have to make your computer wear it when you're not on it, apparently.
Maybe I do. Yeah, I think jeez, God, what was
Brad
I
says,
thinking?
Mel, people won't Google search for wrestlers they don't know about. They're not gonna search Tony Khan's neck brace.
Fair enough.
Somebody made the gif of somebody put that picture of Shad Khan up there, and they're like, how am I supposed to know who this is? There's no video telling me who he is.
That's my favorite joke to use now. I love that joke. It's my favorite joke. I love saying, how am I ever going to figure it out without a video package?
Oh my God,
I love that joke. I'm going to use it. It's in the group with the 7 stars in the Tokyo Dome and all that. So
of course.
One of those.
Definitely. Tony Khan would have got 7 stars for being dropped on his neck if it had been in the
Tokyo
Dome.
Yep.
Shoot. You
know what? I didn't even go look and see what Dave ranked that little bit there. I should. Hilarious. Unless someone I haven't gotten that far.
7 neck braces.
Ironically, like I don't really read the Observer. I do read the star ratings and stuff, but I actually read the Observer for the news and the like when he does like the bios of people.
Sure
and stuff.
You do, Mel. Sure you do.
I don't read it for I don't look at the pictures.
You don't read it.
I buy it for the articles. But I genuinely actually am interested in like the news that he puts in there because it's like stuff about the Vince thing and things like that because he's keeping on it. So it's funny to me, but I just love. Sometimes I have to go down and like look at them just so that I know what everyone's going to be mad about.
Yeah. Well, speaking of things that people were mad about, I wasn't going to bring this up, but since Brad brought it up, I will bring it up briefly. So Brad said, did you happen to see what the friend of the show, Jim Valley, said? I think everybody, if you were on the app, saw it because wrestlers saw it. Nyla Rose saw it. And
Kate from
a lot of people.
Fightful has been engaging him about it. I
will agree. That I really like Jim Valley a lot, but that was a horrible, horrible take. I don't agree with a thing he said with that. I'm glad that Kate is engaging with him, hopefully explaining to him what that is. But
seemed like an amiable conversation.
It felt like I know that he just put it up there without and Twitter's not necessarily a place for nuance. and things get lost, and so it's very generic. And again, I love Jim Valley. I really respect a lot of the things he said, but I didn't agree with him. I thought it was I feel like I know what he was getting at, but it didn't come out well, and he got dragged for it. Should he have gotten dragged for it? Probably not. There's more important conversations to be having. But when women are constantly pitted against each other, as we have seen with WWE has taught a lot of, not outside of just culture in general, pits women against each other, but WWE pits women against each other. And so that feels like that's part of that mindset of pitting women against each other, that a woman can't do this because of the woman. And Tiffany Stratton doesn't just wear pink. Tiffany Stratton wears all kinds of colors, which people kept pointing out to him. And no one woman belongs to, no one woman wears one set of colors in wrestling. Some people, sure, they wear only black gear and things like that, but nobody's assigned. I know the DX would get mad sometimes when, other people would wear black and green, and Taz sometimes has not taken kindly to people wearing orange. But for the most part, I don't think people are going to get confused between Tiffany Stratton and Mariah May because they both happen to wear pink. I feel like that's you're saying that people can't differentiate between two different blonde women. And I know that that's not what he meant. And I feel like he was getting somewhere else, but I feel like I don't agree with what he had to say, but I don't think that it should have turned into what it turned into. Like that was unnecessary. There are more important things to be talking about than that. But I get the point of also trying to explain, like, you can't, like, you can't say that one woman can only wear this because people are going to get confused. But that's like when Nikki and I talked about, it's like when they made Shane Helms change his name when he went to WWE because they didn't want people to confuse him with Shane McMahon. That's why. I watched a ROH match the other day. It had 2 Laylas in it. Layla Gray was in a match against Layla Hirsch. She was in a 6, and I could tell the difference between them. And so I feel like that's not an argument that you can make today. I feel like that was just but it shouldn't have devolved into, unless it was constructive. That's one thing. And if
the conversation that he seemed to be having with Kate,
some people were just going off to go off, which was
dumb.
Unfortunate. But if you're having a constructive conversation, that's completely different. But a lot of it were people were using it to dunk on him, which doesn't help anything. It doesn't prove your point.
Yeah. And again, I like Jim. Jim is a friend of mine. He's a person that I like.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Well, I mean, full disclosure, I understand the conversation being had, and I think I know where he was coming from. Like you said, one of the things
we know him and have had conversations with him. For
correct.
People who don't
now
they see it as an
thing, and I have
white
to
man.
I have to point this out only because someone before he tweeted that, and I'm not defending it, but before he tweeted that on Wednesday night on the Dynamite show, when they talked about that match. When Paul referred to it, he said, and Mariah May came out as Tiffany Stratton. And so
but that's such dumb thinking. And these conversations have got to stop. That's got to stop.
The mentality is there. And I think, again, I'm not defending that.
I realize. No, I didn't realize that had come from
that was her gimmick. In honesty, like Mariah May, this is like going back to a gimmick she had previously, so that was what she was doing. Whatever, I get it. Jim's a huge Stardom fan as well. I think that men don't think about that stuff because men don't have to think about that stuff, and so they don't see that as. Yeah, I don't have a good. It's.
Yeah, and I feel like, again, I feel like it's because we know Jim and have talked to him and have conversations with him, like we kind of knew where he was coming from, and that's why I didn't, because I saw it and just kind of like rolled my eyes, but I was like, well, whatever. I mean, I didn't really think that much of it, and then I kept seeing it in my timeline.
But it is something that at least one other podcaster that I listened to this week that's on our network made the same.
That's such a weird mentality that.
So it makes me,
that kind of shows you
that's not defensive. It's
definitely
there's a mindset.
Right. And it's a concept from, and this is not to bash men in general or anything like that, but men have been shown certain things in culture in general, but in WWE, like there's always these comparisons, and women always have to be compared to women, and instead of judging them on, so you're judging them on what they wear. And I don't think that anybody and that was not a smart thing for Paul to say. I'm sure maybe he was just joking and he didn't mean it.
Oh, he absolutely. I don't want to put it in some context like he was being a dick about it.
And I don't think that's what I'm saying. I don't think he
said, and she came out as Tiffany Stratton, and they were joking about it, and they went on, and it was jolly and fun.
There is a reason that conversation touched a nerve, and why a bunch of women had things to say about it, because that is how women are portrayed in media and in wrestling and in real life. We are constantly pitted against other women. It's
a teachable moment.
I hope so too.
I hope it's a learning.
Twitter doesn't have a lot of nuance.
I tend to hope to believe that because he's having an actual conversation with Kate, it appears. I mean, I feel as though like she is explaining what you're explaining. And again, I just hope it's a moment where we all walk away and go, yeah, we need to really examine the way that we're sort of indoctrinated to think the way that we think.
Mm-hmm.
And
and we've talked about even look at so Sheamus just came back from surgery and people were body shaming him, which is stupid. But then that goes to show you also and you and I, we talked about that early on in our podcast when we were talking about male wrestlers who have body dysmorphia because Vince McMahon showed them on TV for 40 years. This is what the male body should look like. And people like Kevin Owens being successful and is an anomaly. Shorter people like Rey Mysterio getting over is an anomaly, but most men should look like this. And so that kind of shows you when Sheamus came back. Sheamus is 46 years old. He just came back from surgery. Like,
oh my God, as a 45-year-old dude, like it's your body does not come back the way that guys with every like decade away from your 20s, it gets harder and harder to come back from it's. I mean, I was an athlete. I was just talking to Bob this morning about like the stuff that because of it's like every decade, like all the injuries that I took as a player and stuff get just a little bit more inflamed during certain times, or it's your body doesn't come back the same way. And surgery, you're sitting around, so you can only do so much.
Right.
Like he just got back. You guys should be like, yay, welcome back.
He's been back for 2 weeks. And now they've turned it into a story.
Of course
they turned it into a storyline because obviously him and Drew McIntyre are friends in real life. They are now in a feud.
But it's WWE and they make like dumb humor anyway.
I hated that segment because they turned it in. So Drew was engaging in body shaming. And then he was like, you tweet that you used to have banger after banger. It looks like you've had burger after burger after burger. And then Sheamus changed his profile picture to an overweight woman, which I was like, what the fuck are we doing here?
Oh my God.
And so now it's just
making it worse.
Right. And then like this storyline, like it should have just went
with why WWE is not for me.
Yeah. I was just like, it felt like Bruce Pritchard wrote this for Vince to pop him. I mean, I'm sure if he had, they also made before Sheamus came out, Drew McIntyre, because Drew McIntyre's whole personality is CM Punk. Like that's his thing. He's made that his character, basically. It's that he injured CM Punk and CM Punk is whiny, but then all he does is complain about CM Punk. Like that's his whole character. And so before Sheamus came out there, he made some I don't even remember what he was saying now. He made some reference about using, you don't have relationships, you only use your hands, like that type of like juvenile stuff. And then they turn in the same segment, they do the body shaming stuff. And it felt like, I mean, a friend of mine did point out that if it was Vince, he probably would have said something about it because he was wearing a kilt. And he was like, Vince probably would have made some reference to, you know, and a dick reference, like stuff like that. But it just shades of old stuff is what I hated that segment. And some other people in the Slack, they didn't like the segment either. And they just felt like it was just very counterproductive. And now they're going back and forth on Twitter and they're building their feud on Twitter, which sure, a lot of people do, but just like,
well, they do that.
Sheamus changing his picture to an overweight woman, like it was just gross. It just felt very gross. And I have no interest in this feud whatsoever because it's instead of like, I get what they were doing by bringing up the body shaming. They were acknowledging it. And then they just turned it into this whole other thing. And it's just, I don't like it. And these are one of the reasons I don't enjoy WWE. And I was like, if I did not get paid to watch it, I would not. For a lot of the thing that's there. There is good wrestling there, and there are people that I really enjoy, but it's hard to enjoy when you're doing bullshit like that. And I just, ugh. So if you're on Twitter, you'll probably see some of that stuff. And I do want to come back to something that Daza said. The reason Daza said people in 2024 are referring to Mariah, Tony, and Mina storyline as the HLA storyline. I feel like the reason that some people have turned it into that is because of the wrestling gaze has been under the male gaze for a very long time. It feels very Vince-like. But I also know, I don't watch Stardom, but from what I understand, this is what Mina and Mariah did in Stardom. But Stardom is also kind of for a male gaze too. And so they do things in the ring to get attention, not to get attention. That's not the way I want to say that. It just feels like, I think it's different. It's different when the women are the ones who have the bodily autonomy and they can be the ones to want to kiss other women. And if they want, like, if that's their decision, then that's something completely different than being forced to by somebody like Vince McMahon. But I understand why some people, because I had a man talking, and he's like, "Does this feel like HLA to you? Does this feel like it's from a male gaze?" And I was like, it kind of does, but my understanding is this is something that they did in Stardom. Tony kissing Mariah is from, Tony is dressed like her. I mean, Mariah's dressed like Tony. Tony loves her so, because she said it. She was like, "You look like me, and I love myself," and she kissed her. So for that storyline, I feel like it makes sense, and I don't necessarily feel like it comes from a male gaze where you're just trying to play up.
Well, that
kissing
seems
other
like
women
in that
or
situation, that would be her choice. And
and
if
it
that's
feels like
something that the two of them chose together as part
Right.
of their way that they wanted to execute
exactly.
that's
so
fine.
I think that's completely different because they are
That's
owning
consensual.
Yes, it's consensual. They are owning their bodies. They're owning their story. They're doing what they want.
Right.
They're only going as far as they are comfortable with going. Same thing with Mina being involved in this as well. And I feel like that's why and it's kind of like the thing with Rhea Ripley, where she was doing on the house show, she was doing the stink face and stuff, and she was playing into her fan base, but she made the conscious decision to do it. She's not being told by WWE to do it. However, I do understand the argument as far as like, we worked really hard to get away from that, but which I get. But it's different when that person has the bodily autonomy to make these choices for themselves and to do the storyline the way that they see fit and are not being forced to do it by a creepy boss. There are two completely different things, but I can see why
a creepy boss is doing it to like for exactly the reason he's doing. He's doing it to be a voyeur. He's doing it exactly for the wrong reasons.
Right. And so, Vinkin says he's pretty sure they didn't kiss in Stardom, though. Well, thank you for clarifying, because somebody told me that they did. So, and that he said it was mostly hugging. So, Vinkin,
they probably wouldn't in Japan, because that probably wouldn't go over.
Well, that makes sense. That makes sense.
Different culture. This is different culturally. Sure. That probably wouldn't go over so well.
Right.
And I think Rossi was already pushing the boundaries in a lot of ways anyway. And then you had Kenny talking about him like we talk about. And I mean, again, it's when you do look at some of the Stardom stuff under Rossi's like purview and so forth, it was specific to, the wrestlers did a really, really good piece on Stardom, and it really summed up the whole thing, where they were essentially asking the question, like, is this okay? It's like opinions vary. So.
Yeah, definitely. And so, and I think that is a good conversation that we're having, is we're really like, there's a difference between, again, women choosing what they're doing and bodily autonomy and figuring out what they want to do with their story, than being told to do it by a creepy old man who's living out his sexual fantasies on TV and is forcing you to do it. And if you don't have a job anymore. So those are two completely different things. But we have been trained to see women in wrestling in a certain way. And then when you continue that, then some people are like, wait a minute, didn't we work a way to get away from this? And so I can see like why that's a question. And
sure, but the idea is, no, we didn't necessarily work to get away from this. We worked to have a choice.
Right.
Like,
right.
That's where I feel like even like any ism goes off the rails, is it's like, no, you didn't work to do it like to get away from that. You worked like for suffrage. No, we wanted it so that women could make a choice. We wanted them to have the choice. If I want to be a stay-at-home mom, or if I want to go out into the world, and obviously there's hurdles to that are separate.
Sure, of course.
Right. Being that I am making the choice that I will go work, or I will go be a mom, or I won't be a mom, or whatever. Just any of that. And I think that women having those choices is still very scary. And it's
Because it's women
still,
having a choice, and
we still have a lot of older generation people who are, I mean, for better or worse, I don't think there was ill will behind. That's the thing that I really want to like, because even I think they're in their 50s and 60s. The men that are to a lot of like what's going, like they're older, 50, 60. It's so since they were kids, this is how they've thought about women. It's and I don't think it comes from a place like some people are bad faith actors, obviously.
Of course.
But I think the people that we're talking about, I don't think it comes from a place of maliciousness or the hate. I think it comes literally from they pound this stuff into us from the time that we're small. Like we do it to ourselves. We're so indoctrinated. Sometimes we beat our own selves up.
You have to break out of
did I bring this on myself? Like
you have to unlearn so many things of what we're taught. And then you can also talk about, I mean, and of course that's also with men. Men are taught to view women a certain way too. So oh no. Brad says that Sean Rossop just sent out an email update. Julia Hart looks like she's having surgery with her injury, and Hobbs has a significant one and expected to be out for quite a while. Man, I hate both of that for both of them. But man, that for Hobbs to get injured in that match, and I hate that for both of them. It's rough. And Hassan, I do want to get back to because I was going to lead that into something else with what we were about the storyline with the women, and I was actually going to bring that up as the women because we were kind of talk about some of the fallout from Dynasty. Obviously we were a week out from it, but one of the things, and so clearly the Tony Khan segment was fallout from that as well. But then the women this week on Dynamite got, I think Brad said, about 35 minutes. And it was consecutive time on top of that. Like, so we started out with, if I remember the layout correctly, it was because I watched a lot of wrestling in the last few days. So if I remember correctly, we started out with a backstage segment with Deanna and Thunder Rosa.
Right.
Went into Willow's celebration with Mercedes and Chris Statlander.
Right.
And they set that up. That was really great. They set up where Chris grabbed Mercedes, and Mercedes thought it was Willow, and Willow got slapped. So we can see that storyline starting to play out some more. Like that whole set. I thought that was Mercedes' best promo that she's cut in AEW. It felt very natural. It was a really great segment from both. Like I thought the whole thing was great. Then we had another segment to follow that up. We had this stuff with Tony and it was Anna Jay wrestled Mariah May. And then, no, not Mariah.
No, not Mina. Mariah. Tony
that was Mina. And then Anna, she hurt Mariah, and Tony that sent Tony running out there.
Okay, that's where it was.
And then Tony was like, and so then that's why Tony and Anna wrestled last night because she was getting vengeance on her. And so it's like all these moving all these storylines are happening and moving. Then you have Serena Deeb cut the promo as well, even though TBS's audio was off and you couldn't hear it because TBS was messing up that it sounded. So that we've got all these moving parts with more women getting involved. Then you've got Renee backstage, and now we have Arkady Ara, who was on last night. She was doing stuff on Collision, and so we have some movement in the women's division, which is really nice to see, and I thought it played out really well. Brad said there were 35 minutes, 4 segments, and 11 women.
I like that. Yeah, thank you for the count. Brad, a man after my own heart, a data collector.
Right. Yeah. And Hassan said Chris Statlander is doing evil things even on the street fight. She held Orange Cassidy from attacking Trent. She's suspicious. Exactly, Hassan.
She is great right now. I'm really liking this stat. She is like, I'm excited about where she's at right now.
Yeah. And then I hope so, Laurent. Laurent says maybe the EVP should give us a second women's match every week while TK is unable to travel to the show as part of their takeover. Maybe they should add a woman to the elite. Maybe
they've got good women now. Like, I mean, they've had good women, obviously, but like, you're giving them time, and look what's happening.
Mm-hmm. They're building characters. They're building story. There's storyline movement. There's women putting on fantastic matches.
Even Paul is like pointing out that some of the women's quarters are growing. Like that is, it's really happening.
When it comes to ratings, that's really the only thing I care about is how are the women getting the attention they deserve.
I don't care about that.
People ask me about ratings all the time, and I'm like, unless the women, I just want to know if the women are improving their rating.
Not our wheelhouse, folks.
That's all I care about.
There's plenty of podcasts for that. I can recommend people I trust for that sort of thing. If you want to listen to them, we don't talk about that here.
Yeah,
except for that kind of thing, and it is because he brings it up because Paul is like the guy that covers that stuff.
Yeah.
It's nice to hear.
Yeah, it is nice to hear. And I like to hear women popping ratings in any company because, Becky Lynch was doing that. She was going to NXT and popping million viewer ratings, which is incredible.
I thought Thunder Rosa has had her best, like now that she's had like her best showing.
Yeah, she's been incredible. And like
she's back in a different, like, I don't know, maybe like this was like a turning point for her, like, and which would be awesome because she's
like
great.
It. Like, but her promos
she seems like she's come back strong. Like she is ready to go. Like she did not ever.
Like her,
and she had a lot of mental health problems. Like, so not only was she dealing with the injury, she was dealing with her mental health, which as someone who has both of those things, it's tough. And
it is tough.
I think that maybe
there was also locker room drama in the women's locker room for a while.
Drama. Maybe that time away was good for her.
And I was gonna say that played into that time for her as well. And so now maybe that she's had a reset and has gotten, her health is back under control. Hopefully that means her mental health is back under control.
Her right now.
She's doing great work. Like her match last night she looked fantastic, and her promos have been great. They haven't hinted it as much lately. Like a few weeks ago, she hinted joining with LFI, which I don't know if that's going to change now that they don't have Jose the assistant anymore, but like they kind of hinted at that. So there's always that possibility, which would be really cool. And then Hassan brought up a really great point that Red Velvet and Queen Aminata had a promo and on ROH that was awesome. And so that story started on Battle of the Belts, where we saw Athena retain her title, and then we see Queen Aminata get involved. Red Velvet was in the match, and then Billy, they continued that storyline this week, where Athena, they called an emergency and a MIM, which is a minion emergency meeting, to talk about they talked about Athena getting dropped on her head from Queen Aminata, and then so they were like, they basically issued a challenge for a tag team match for the two of them. And then they cut later on. They had a promo from Queen Aminata and Red Velvet. That was fantastic. I'm really excited for this feud because I love all four of these women. I think they're all incredible. And I'm really excited about that stuff that they're doing. And so there seems to be a lot of movement with the women. And we had the Deonna Purrazzo heel turn last night, which I thought went really well. And so that type of stuff was really great. Brad says that Kenny is going to become the GM and add the AEW Joshi Hour. Maybe that's what Rampage can become.
You know what? That actually is a really good idea. Because now he's not part of the Elite anymore because he's been replaced by Okada, his arch nemesis.
Yes.
So maybe he should.
Maybe before he gets Rainmaker,
powerful Joshi army to send after the.
Yes. And then speaking of we were talking about women's injuries and stuff. I believe Riho, if I'm not mistaken, she's stuck in Japan having visa issues. I think.
Yeah, that's the last I heard too.
Yeah, so she's having. So she was having visa issues the last I heard, and
bummer.
So that kind of sucks. But we've got Yuka Sakazaki has been back on TV. Poor Emi Sakura she drove down to Jacksonville for the first time yesterday, and she broke it up into 2 days. I happened to see her tweeting about it, and she said she never drove in Japan, and this is her first time driving in the U.S. and she feels like a real wrestler now. And like she had car issues on Friday, and then yesterday she left. She's like, I planned out my whole trip. I left 2 hours early. And then she said she finally made it, and her car had overheated, and some nice people on the side of the road helped her, and she finally made it. And one of the security guards she recorded, and he was like, "You made it." He's like, "I'm so glad that you did." And so I'm hoping that after they did all that she better be booked on ROH this week.
I hope they help her fix
I was like, that
her
poor
car.
woman went through a lot of trauma to get down there, so you better put her on there.
And
But
help her fix her car while you're at it.
and Emmy's great, and I want her on TV anyway.
There's a lot of they have a lot of good talent on both sides. Like
they do.
All the way around. They have such
and that was one of the things that Kiera and I talked about, and I'm not just pushing this because this is my interview, but I if you watch ROH, if you watch ROH, I urge you to read the interview with Kiera, because she had a lot to say about the women's division and how hard they've worked in the last 2 years being under Tony Khan now, and like what they've done with that division and what Athena has meant to them, and what Athena and even Kiera talked about, she had the Chicago street fight with her. And so Kiera had a lot of really cool things to say. And Athena's husband retweeted the article, and then shortly after I saw that Athena liked it. So I assume that either Athena read it or Matthew Palmer read the part about herself.
Oh, that's funny.
Fine. Yeah, that's fun. That was really cool. And so I appreciated that, because he retweets my stuff about Athena pretty often, which is always really cool to see.
Well, you are one of her big cheerleaders.
Nikki told that to Kiera, because she was talking about how Athena needs her flowers. And Nikki was like, let me tell you, she was like, she does. She's always giving Athena her flowers, whether it's on Twitter or her podcast. So she was like, she's getting it. And I was like, but the ROH women's division, I think, deserves this week's booking was questionable. They had 5 women's matches, but they were all under 4 minutes. So, Daz, I hope you feel better. Thanks for letting us know. I hope you feel better soon, and hopefully you'll be back with us next week.
Oh no! Oh, feel better, Daza.
Yeah, but yes, at the ROH women's division, they had 5 matches this week. They were all really short matches. They've gotten Abaddon doing some more of the squash matches, which not necessarily a fan of. I know why they do it, but other than that, for the most part, they've really been building the women's division. They've been having really good matches. They've been giving them time. Anna Jay has been down there getting some work in. I think Anna Jay has improved so much in the last few months. Red Velvet, since Red Velvet's come back from surgery, she's been on a roll. Same thing for Queen Aminata. And I think we've talked, and you and I've talked about it before. Anna Jay, I think, would really benefit from a run in Japan. I think that's what
she could do it.
I think she's
really, right on the cusp of becoming a really, really good wrestler.
And considering
she's got the background, she's got the right attitude.
When she signed with AEW, when they were in the pandemic era, she had 7 matches. That's it. And look how much she's grown in 2 years with all that.
Yeah, no, she's really legit.
And her mic stuff, probably, her promos and stuff, she needs some work on, but a lot of people do. And I think that she could eventually get it all together. But her wrestling right now has been really, really good. And I've been really happy to see that improvement with her. And then Hassan points out that, we've got Serena Deeb and Mariah on Dynamite next week, which is going to be, that should be fantastic.
Love me some Serena Deeb.
Me too.
Always the professor.
She's got some fun. I enjoy her work, and it's nice, and it's fun to see. There's so many different styles in the division, and to see the technical stuff that Serena brings, and I really enjoy a lot of the more hard hitting stuff that we're seeing. Athena is kind of the one who brought that into AEW, because they really weren't doing a whole lot of the hard hitting stuff until Athena and Jody Threat had that match, and then that kind of turned a switch, and then I think, they realized that people like the hard-hitting stuff from women, and so we see a lot. Well,
because the Japanese wrestlers actually do strong style as part of their repertoire. Right. So for them, they are just as. A lot of them learned with men, so it's whatever. I love seeing it. It's a lot of fun. That's why I really enjoyed TJPW stuff on Wrestle Universe, and that's why I do it. Pop in on that, because it's fun to see the ladies get their shot at. Yeah, I like that. That's my style of wrestling anyway, so I'm always going to enjoy watching that.
And I saw a tweet from Will Ospreay yesterday. I don't remember the match that he quote tweeted, but it was some like insane move from women, and he was talking about how Joshi women are so far ahead of even men, and they have all these very creative finishers and creative ways to get out to like reversals and things like that. And he's like myself included, like they're just so beyond what what a lot of people are doing. And he was like, and I wish more people should pay attention to that. And Vinkins says it was May Sarah was who it was. Yes, I do remember when people thought Athena going hard on Jody Threat was a shoot, and it was not at all. That's what they both wanted to do, and Jody Threat wrestles like that in TNA. That's what she wanted.
Hilarious.
And it started that helped Jody get signed with TNA, and then obviously this is what has set Athena on this entire run that she's been on. It changed her direction and her character completely. And that match I think should be seen for how pivotal it was for Athena. And I've talked about it before. I would love to see a rematch between Athena and Jody Threat. With now that this is where I guess 2 years past this now, or like a year and a half past, and they've grown so much. I would like to see them get a rematch. I don't know if they would bring Jody back in, but I would love to see if they don't do it in AEW. I would love to see, or ROH. I would love to see them do it somewhere on the Indies just to see. Maybe Revolver will do it. They put Athena wrestles in Revolver sometimes. So, and I think Jody has too. So maybe Revolver will do it if ROH doesn't, if they don't do it, because I would love to see it. LaRon says they still need a female luchador. Where are the CML women on AEW? Failing at that, at least give me Stephanie back.
Yeah,
he told me he did say they had.
He did say that to you.
He did tell me they were working on getting her in, and they are working on it. And I feel like Forbidden Door is probably where it might happen, or at least that'll be a starting point. If Forbidden Door is going to be AEW, CML, and New Japan like it seems like it's going to be, I think that's where it's going to happen, especially because Trisha Dora has wrestled her. She's wrestled for the strong title. They've had some crossover with some stuff. I think that they definitely could, and hopefully the sooner the better. Though, Laurent, I agree with you. I do want to see more women from CMLL, which I did ask. I asked about Stephanie specifically just because I think we all of us who have seen her have become fans of her because she's incredible.
Even Dave was because he went to Battle in the Valley and he was like, where has this woman been? He like flipped out. He had like not seen her and was very, very upset about it. So I was like, cool, that's good. So maybe that'll push it a little. I mean,
And Hassan says that Ospreay was on the Jericho podcast, said that he used to go to Stardom with his ex and trains with the girls there. And he trained with Azumi when she was young, and he always praises them. That's always nice to see. I appreciate it.
During the pandemic, he actually wrestled B. That was one of the fun things that did happen during the pandemic is they were still together. They wrestled each other, and it was one of the best matches of the pandemic era. Honestly.
Yeah, it was a really good match.
I mean, notwithstanding all the crazy, that match itself was super cool because first of all, my favorite part of that was that they introduced him as B. Priestley's boyfriend, which I will always appreciate. That's a funny joke. That's nice. That's nice.
Yeah, it is. Yes, it is nice. And then there's some, but that was,
I mean, regardless of that part, and we won't worry about the other stuff. We've already had enough of that today.
Right. But so I think there's a lot of exciting things, and sure, there are certain things to still talk about. And yes, I know Athena should be on TV, and we are waiting for that. And it was Battle of the Belts was 3 weeks ago.
I think he's keeping her on there.
But I agree, Lauren. I agree that Athena should be on, but I'm not. I still fuss at him. I still fuss all the time about Athena not being on TV, but I am also not going to not talk about the good things that are happening. I think there's a room in the conversation for both of those. And not that I'm saying I'm not picking on Laurent. I'm not saying that Laurent's saying that either. I didn't mean if that's how that sounded, that's not what I meant by that. Because Laurent is right. Like Athena should be on TV. Athena is the best. She's the best champion.
I think Tony's keeping her behind that paywall on purpose. She is a huge draw.
Kiera kind of
needs that.
Yeah, Kiera kind of hinted. Now I don't think she didn't quite say it like that, but she was just like, she's.
But from a just.
But she even said she's like, we are trying to. She said we are trying to put on the best matches for people who are who were subscribed to Honor Club.
Right.
So they know who they're going for. And so I think that so yeah, but I think Athena should be on TV. I think Athena should be, if she could, I would have her on TV every week, everywhere, all 3 shows.
Everywhere.
But I do think that, but Lauren's right. And it is not a perfect, they do have a lot of work they can be doing, but I do want to just praise them and not completely, but Athena should be on TV. More CMLL women should be on TV as well. I would love to see more of that. I don't want it to be a one-sided thing like they did with TNA, where they were only bringing in male wrestlers from TNA. They brought in no women, even though the fans were asking for it and the wrestlers themselves were asking for it. So, yes, I know who Shaza is. I follow her on Twitter and have been watching for her for a couple of years. I know who that is. I am familiar with her. Nobody seems to know when Megan Bain is coming. I know she went back to Stardom and had a match like 2 weeks ago.
What was that person in WWE that was supposed to come for like a year and a half and never showed up? She's becoming that meme.
Oh, Veer.
That's it, Veer.
And then he, unfortunately, sadly, when they were doing releases last
went
week,
away. It took him all that time to get there, and then
they released him and the guy that they had with him.
I remember because this week when I heard that, I was like, it took all that time to get him there, and then they do this to him? What the hell? I'm not even like a fan. It just became such a meme that it was a meme on wrestling Twitter that Veer's coming.
Yep.
So Megan Bain
the other day was like because they used to say they were here like Veer, and they were like, "No, I can't make that joke anymore because he's not here." And Eddie said that Alex Windsor needs to be signed, and even before I saw her match at Windy City Riot, I keep hearing her name comes up a lot. I hear her name at the UK indie scene a lot, and even when Lisa was on here, she was saying that she put over Alex and was saying that Alex needed to be signed, and she was surprised she hadn't been signed anywhere yet. So her name has come up a lot, and not just because of who her significant other is, which people will say if she comes in, they'll be like, "Oh, she only got signed because she's in a relationship with Will Ospreay," which is not true. She would get there on her own merit, from what I have seen. I have not heard this. David says, "Is there any truth? What I've heard that the EVPs wouldn't do business with Deanna for a while because of how her and their British pal split up." I have never heard that. I think people just run their mouths too much. But it could. I mean, yeah, I've never heard it. It wouldn't
possible because
they're theater it wouldn't kids. Surprise me.
I mean, it's all bad fighting and weirdness.
That before.
I haven't heard that. No.
Yeah, I never. Yeah, I mean, it's certainly.
I never dismiss anything in wrestling because the wildest stuff can be true in wrestling, like, and has been historically from all the reading I've done at this point. It's, but I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe not. Yeah. I mean, in theory, Will would have a lot of pull at this point for the amount of money and thing, but I don't think that that's how Tony runs business. And
no, and I don't think that the EVPs were doing that either.
Well, I certainly don't think that.
I mean, I know they're still like, we know, I know they're still like, I'm not dumb enough to think that they're not friends with him anymore.
Well, of course,
but I think that they're not stupid enough to try to put him on TV, especially after when Rocky tried to book him for Strong and the backlash that he received for that. I don't think they're dumb enough to do that. Because if they did, I would have a lot to say about that, but I don't think that they're going to. I don't think they. But I'm also not dumb enough to think. I'm also not dumb enough to think that they're not still friends with him.
Of course.
I'm sure that they are. They just don't post it on social media because they know better.
You're friends. You keep it to yourself.
Right.
It's better for everyone.
David said, "Would Alex Windsor have the time for AEW schedule with the little one and having the schedule he does already?" That's a good question. I don't.
That is a good question.
That is
maybe she doesn't want to. Maybe this whole situation is that she's
maybe she's just trying to stay in Japan and not stay in Japan, but doing stuff with New Japan and like going that route, like maybe in Stardom and things of that nature. But that's a good that's definitely something that they have to think about. I mean, that's the conversation we even had about because people were wondering if like Becky Lynch would sign with AEW even if Seth stayed in WWE, and I think that they travel with their child a lot, and I think that would be really hard to travel with your child and have spouses in 2 separate companies. Not that it can't be done, but that's very difficult, and I think that that's probably a benefit for both of them to stick together in one company so that they can bring their child with them on the road. And then I feel like that's part of the reason they put the title on her, was to be like, hey, we'll put the title on you if you resign your contract, because Drew has already resigned. Drew McIntyre resigned, or the news came. I don't know if he resigned yesterday, but the news came out yesterday. He resigned with the company.
Oh, okay.
So I feel, he resigned yesterday. So I feel like, or The Rock actually is the one who announced it, apparently. He announced that he resigned. So I feel like Becky and Seth are gonna sign him. Like it'll probably
imminently.
Be soon. Yeah, very imminently that'll be happening. And I'm sure the Natty contract, because people were, her contract.
Well, Becky has a little bit of leverage now that Rhea's hurt, because they had to give her back the belt. And so she might have a little more. And she is, one of their most popular wrestlers anyway.
Yeah, she was drawing like we said, she was drawing 1 million viewers down on NXT like just a few months ago.
They had to make that women's main event a 3-way because she wouldn't go away. So at WrestleMania 35. Yes. So it just
I would agree with that too.
Becky is a bigger draw than Seth, in my opinion. But she certainly, for me. I don't. Seth Rollins to me is a very mediocre at best wrestler. He's most, and what his popularity at this point is totally predicated on a bunch of like his costumes and the fact that you can sing along to his song, which is something that you can do with Japanese wrestlers too, and they actually can wrestle.
Yeah, I've never been a fan of his. For people who like him,
he's a great sports entertainer, but he's not a great wrestler.
Because I have said this before, I was not a fan of the Shield. I just was not for me. I always liked Roman Reigns. I didn't like Dean Ambrose until he was on his own. I preferred Jon Moxley way more.
Oh, yeah, no, Dean Ambrose can stay dead. I'm concerned.
He's not. Yeah, I will always
6 feet under.
But Seth is good at what he does, as far as, and I don't think Seth will ever leave that company.
Well, and he's definitely, of course they don't publish it, but we know that he's one of their highest paid guys. We know that he's a company guy. Like you said, they have their family thing, their vibe going on. For better or worse, they may as well get some money out of the deal. Who knows what's going to happen with all of this stuff that's out there with Vince's issues.
Yeah. No, I prefer Jon Moxley everywhere. Jon Moxley on the Indies is even better than Jon Moxley in Japan.
I like that Jon Moxley.
Go watch that Defy match I talk about it all the time. Go watch that Defy match between Jon Moxley and Tom Lawler.
Jon Moxley is so brilliant because he brings a slightly different Jon Moxley to each thing that he's still Jon Moxley, but he has variants for each. We've talked about this.
Yeah, we've talked about this all the time. There's levels. There's AEW
he has
Jon
variants
Moxley
for each place that he's at.
He does. Exactly. There's AEW Jon Moxley. New Japan Jon Moxley comes up a few notches. There's GCW Jon Moxley, who is somehow even more than that. And then there's
crazy wrestler.
There's Jon Moxley's at indie shows like Defy, and Jon Moxley has all of these levels and all of these years. I prefer Jon Moxley Jon Moxley in Japan is incredible, but I love Jon Moxley in AEW. I've heard
Jon Moxley in OTT is fun too, but he gets blood everywhere.
Yes, and Jon Moxley, I will prefer. I love that dude. I love him everywhere, but I do love him in Japan. But I
do love him in Japan.
I do. I don't.
I love that we live in a time that he can do that, and
and he's out here doing like wrestling Revolver shows that are awesome. Like
Jon Moxley's so awesome that New Japan put their belt on him. Like like when AEW needed like the help because things went to hell, they put the belt on Jon Moxley. He's like their Okada.
Mm-hmm. And he really is. Jon Moxley is
he's like literally
when you think of an MVP,
got the IWGP
Jon Moxley. Right. Yeah, Jon Moxley, like if there was an AEW Hall of Fame, Jon Moxley would be in there.
He should be the first inductee.
He
probably.
Benkin has an important
question. He always
question.
comes to work. He's always he does amazing promos.
He doesn't go on vacation.
He never goes on vacation, but he stays the F out of the drama. Like, do you ever hear Jon Moxley's name being thrown around in the drama? No. Never.
Benkin has an important question. Is Baron Corbin
Okay.
going to be over in France again next week?
I
guess. I mean, he did get drafted to Raw. Wait, I think he got drafted to Raw after, like, he was a supplemental draft pick. So that tells you something. Oh, yeah, he did. No, he got drafted to SmackDown because Braun Breaker got drafted to Raw, and they are separate because they're the NXT Tag Team Champions. Braun and Baron are, and so they got drafted to separate brands because they, from the way it was reported, is Braun is a star and they want him by himself.
Okay.
And so Baron is, but it was funny because just a couple months ago, I wrote, not even a couple months, well, yeah, maybe a couple months ago, I had just wrote about how Braun Breaker decided to sign with SmackDown, and he chose them, and then he got drafted to Raw on Friday night. And then Baron got drafted to SmackDown, and I don't know what that means for the NXT titles. I assume they're going to drop them at probably that pay-per-view that they're doing at the UFC facility. Probably. I assume they're going to drop them. So, but maybe he will get over in France again. But that is a very important question. So thank you for posing the important questions like that. I appreciate that. All right. Is there anything else from Dynasty that you want to talk about?
No, I thought it was, I mean, just to wrap it up, put a pin in it. It was a great show. It was a great new pay-per-view.
I could have done
was
without the Chris Jericho bullshit. I think we
obviously that was the bathroom break time for me. I really, really hated all of it. I did that.
Did you see that
Go ahead, sir.
He wore the lion hook shirt last night.
Oh, dumb.
Jericho did. Oh, that reminds me. So yesterday, Nikki and I we saw a license tag that said Fish Hook, and I was like, that's what, if Bobby Fish and Hook were a team, that's what they would call it.
That's it.
Fish Hook. There's your shirt.
Shirt it.
Put it on a shirt.
just stuff sells itself, people. We're just giving these ideas away.
Yes, and
giving
also,
them away.
Apparently TNA is giving away ideas because the learning tree, TNA already did that 2021 with Brian Myers. He was the learning tree. He was the Garrett Kidney pointed this out. He was the veteran who was giving away advice to young people that they didn't want.
Also, it seems like a total direct dig on CM Punk, but I mean,
well, Ron said that Jericho match got way too much time and the wrong guy won. Oh, I knew Jericho was winning. That's how
I knew he was winning too.
To make it work for this stupid ass storyline.
Yeah, it was dumb.
And because of Taz, I don't want him to have the title, but I knew that they were going to. I hate this storyline. I hate everything about it. And I don't know why
have a belt at all right now.
I don't know why Big Bill went from Ricky Starks to Jericho, and
why does Jericho even need a belt? He's irrelevant in this. He's almost irrelevant at this point. I mean, you know what's so funny about I say that every time, Benkin. I'm like, isn't Fozzy going on tour again? It's
forever.
I wish
just a continuous tour.
Go get one of those shows in Vegas where you're playing all the time.
Yeah, go do that.
Then you're done. Set for life.
There you go. Oh God, and it was funny because he's using a new Fozzy song as his intro, and Mikey Ruckus immediately put out. He was like, for those asking, that's a Fozzy song. Like,
he's like, I didn't do it. Like, wasn't me.
Yeah,
I don't blame him.
Immediately tweeted that. That's it. For those asking, that's a Fozzy song.
I don't blame him.
Nikki was like, well, at least I don't have to hear Judas anymore. So there's, I guess, silver lining and all that stuff. He said, Vinkin says, go away. How can we miss you if you never leave? Well, the fans were telling him to.
You know what's so funny about it is
that was insane in that match. Those fans were, and the Jericho was just like, no, that's not what was happening. I'm like, you've been in the business this long. You can't tell me that you don't hear that. Like, that's not go away heat. That's like, we're tired of you, get off my TV. Like,
go away.
I've never heard a crowd get like that before. Like that, or at least not that I can remember.
No, it just didn't make sense. It felt,
and like LeBron said, that match was really long. Like it could have got a lot less than that. I mean, maybe the chance when it got so out of control.
I don't understand that entire situation. There's so many younger wrestlers that need time.
Somebody pointed out on Twitter the other day, I can't remember off the top of my head who it was, but they were like, Jericho left WCW because they were stifling younger talent. And now what is he doing in the year of 2024? He thinks he's helping them. Some people think he's helping them.
They don't need his help right now. Hook certainly didn't need his help.
No. And why are they putting Big Bill with him? Like, what does Bill need to prove to? Well, I don't know. I mean, I know they need a new storyline for him after the Ricky Starks thing, but I don't know how you go from being with Ricky Starks to begging Jericho to let you sit under his.
I don't like it.
I don't like this storyline at all. I don't. And who else are they going to put in there? Like, that's what I was trying to figure out. Like,
every time I hear him say the learning tree, it makes me think of the cover of The Giving Tree by Dr. Seuss, but like in a really
pointed that out too. Yes,
but in a really twisted way. And I don't know why. Like my brain, it's like, stop it! You're wrecking a really good. Like you're putting the wrong meme in my brain. I don't like it. Like rotten apples are falling out of the tree. Like stop it! Get out of here.
I don't like the story at all.
It's totally contradictory because Hobbs went to him to do that and said, I want to sit under your learning tree. And he's like, I'll think about it. I'm like, well, you just busted your entire freaking thing then, because if someone comes to you to sit under the learning tree, you are supposed to accept them. Not think about it.
Yeah. Yes.
That's dumb. Yes. It made it even dumber to me. That made me mad because as a teacher and a mentor, like that's my past. Like that's my
and then I also like how they made Big Bill. Big Bill beat some indie wrestler to impress Jericho. I'm like, how is you beating some young indie talent supposed to help you?
Let me squash an indie talent for you so that you'll accept me under your learning tree that you're running around saying you want people for, and then I come out and say, hey, I'm ready, and you're like, I'll think about it.
Yeah. That didn't make any sense. But other than that, I thought Dynasty was fantastic. Yes. I think most of the stuff in the last few days, I really enjoyed the parking lot fight. I was irritated because I was doing live coverage, so I couldn't enjoy it the way that I normally would. Like I love, and they call them parking lot fights, but I think they originally were calling them parking lot brawls. That's what RJ City even called it a parking lot brawl last night in his little pre-thing. I was like, brawl sounds better, but whatever. But I love those parking lot matches, and I really wanted to get into it, but I couldn't because I was having to type out what was happening, and it was a little, and it kind of takes you out of it a little bit. And but I thought they handled it real. I think it should have been the main event. I wish it had gotten, and they initially made it look like it was going to be like, it was just going to be Serena not Serena, Thunder Rosa on Rampage. I think that was the Rampage match, right? Thunder Rosa and Deanna, I think, were Rampage, not Collision.
I think so.
I believe. Yeah, and they made it look like those were going to be the only two things, and then they added it. I mean, I don't have a problem with Shane Taylor Promotions and Shibata and Daniel Garcia. Shane Taylor Promotions probably should have won that match because they need to give them some bigger wins. And then they had, Roosh was on Collision too. And Roosh, I don't know if people recognize, he wrestled Martin Stone. Martin Stone is the former Danny Burch in NXT. That's who he wrestled last night. I think a lot of people didn't realize that that's who that was because he looks a little bit different. And then he was using his indie. Actually, I think Martin Stone is his legit name, but that was his name on the indies. That's how I knew him when he used to wrestle for PWX. I was really glad to see Grizzled Young Veterans. I'm mad that they made them lose to the Acclaimed. Don't like that Max Caster is still on TV. I think Anthony Bowens needs to be by himself. They need to just let him be a singles wrestler and just get Max off my TV for a while. God, if they pair him with Jericho, though.
Oh, boy, that's like, they can just call that team cringe.
Yeah. I wish they would. He was so close to not saying anything inappropriate in his
reference. Gotcha.
He was so close to not saying anything stupid, and there he just can't help himself. And somebody pointed out that they sent him to sensitivity training in 2021, and that clearly he just doesn't care, or it didn't work, or they said he went to sensitivity training and he didn't, which is that. Hassan says if GYV are signed, it's stupid to introduce them with a loss, right? I don't know that they're signed. They did put out a promo last night that they would be back. They seem to have an issue with Billy Gunn, obviously, because Billy Gunn cost them the match. They put the locker room on notice, but they're kind of doing the Mustafa thing where they're just going to different places, getting a paycheck. And I don't mean that getting a paycheck like they're not doing work, because they are, but they're not signing. They're going to different places, which is smart. I think that's a really smart play, to go to different places and work and get paid, get exposed to different crowds. And then potentially at the end of it, be like, you know what? Maybe I do want to sign. Maybe they stick with do the Matt Cardona thing, where you just kill it everywhere that you feel like it. You get paid to get flown all over the world and, and do all these things. So maybe they do that, but it doesn't feel like, I don't think that they are signed. I think they're doing, and it would be really, not that they couldn't, but that would be really interesting if they sign and Motor City is like on the way in too. Like that would be really insane if that's what they did. And it was not 500 paper. It was not, that line is apparently not correct, the 500 pay-per-view buys. I haven't had a chance to watch. Mike Gilbert broke that down and explained what that really means, and it's not what it sounds like. It's actually more, I mean, it's still not a high number, but it's not 500. It's the way I forget the way that Mike kind of mentioned it on Twitter, but he did a whole, like, there's an 11-minute clip on Twitter that he put, and I need to watch that, so that
he's the person you want to go to for all of
your
impact breakdowns.
There's a misconception about the TNA buys. Yeah, there was some kind of
Mike's your guy.
Hassan listened to Mike Gilbert. Yes, exactly. I need to.
That's who you got. You know, when it comes to that stuff, you listen to Mike Gilbert.
Yeah, there was just the way it was like, in the way it was reported, and then of course people latched on to that 500 buys part, and that's all anybody was talking about. They weren't having the full conversation, which I don't know what the full conversation is because I haven't listened to it yet, but I saw it last night. I just haven't had a chance. Yeah. And Laron says that GYV gave the Acclaim their best match in a very long time. I would agree with that. I would agree with that, but I think it's hard to have a bad match with those two. I do, however, once I saw that they were bringing them in, I want them to have a singles match with James Drake versus JD Drake, because JD Drake's real name is James Drake, and he had to change it because he was in Evolve, and WWE signed GYV, and he was using the name James Drake on the Indies, and so that forced James Drake to change his name to JD Drake. So I want to have a one-on-one match with him just because it would entertain me. And I think it would be funny. Even though the Workhorsemen and GYV did have a match at Deadlock Pro a few months ago, and I know that they have Workhorsemen want that rematch. They've talked about it. And Anthony Henry is supposed to be cleared on May the 10th. That's his clear date, which is a Friday. So he could potentially be on Collision that very next night.
Well, I hope his mouth, that's broken jaw. I'm a clencher, so jaw stuff can get really icky. I hope he feels okay.
Getting bonked in the face. But yeah, so that's the goal date for him. And
that's
then
awesome.
Also, since we're speaking of goal dates, Trevor Lee will be available to start taking dates on July 22nd, which I'm very excited about. I hope that Trevor Lee goes on a monster indie run. I hope that he kills it, just like, because Mustafa was like, I'm waiting for you. And I think that if he goes that route, he could do really, really well. And I loved seeing that outpouring of support for him, because like I knew, like, our text group, like, we all loved Trevor Lee because we watched him in the beginning of his career when he wrestled here locally. And I knew that people who watched 205 and NXT really liked him, but I didn't realize like how many people, like, I didn't expect to see that so many people were like, what are they doing cutting him? Like, this is a mistake. And I was like, whoa, so many people love him. And I was nice. So that was nice to see. And then I saw so many wrestlers were like, I will wrestle you, and like, they're like, it's hard hearing that you lost your dream job, and it's hard, but you'll bounce back. And so that was really cool to see. And so I hope that they do it. And Brad says GYV versus Silver and Reynolds. I saw somebody say that they wanted them to wrestle, and then Silver and Zach Gibson would take home the wrong person because they both have the long hair. Well, then you could also do it. Silver and Gibson are both bald, except for Silver obviously has facial hair. And so, that's very nice. Miguel said he's listening to us while enjoying the Fallout 4 update. Thanks for being part of my Sunday afternoons. Thank you for being here and letting us be part of your Sunday afternoons. We really appreciate that. But
We
yeah,
do.
so
Very much. And for all of you people that are out there that are watching, if you're not subscribed to our YouTube channel, we are closing in on 3,000.
we got it.
Like, we did
We
get
got
it.
it this
Okay.
morning.
Well,
Mhm.
then just let's keep the momentum
Jeremy.
going.
Yes, keep the momentum going. Help us get to 4,000.
Yes. One click at a time.
Yes,
if you're
but we
not
got there. We did
subscribed-
get there this morning, according to Jeremy. He sent a
I
message.
had not looked. So
Yes,
cool.
so we
That's
did get there this
fantastic.
morning. Don't
Thank
you
you, guys.
unsubscribe to make us fall under that because you think you're being funny. Don't do that. Help us get to 4,000. That's the next goal. So
right.
we appreciate it. Oh, also, the Joy of Wrestling is the new YouTube show that
yeah.
Paul Fontaine has been doing, and I've only got to see the first two, but they were great. And I really need to see the other two. But also, I'm going to be the next guest. I am recording my episode tonight. I think it's airing tomorrow. He wanted to do it live, but because of my commitments to writing, I don't get done until midnight Eastern, and so he was very gracious to open up his time for me this evening, and so we're recording tonight, and I believe that will be up tomorrow. So if you subscribe to the YouTube channel, you'll be able to watch that. Obviously, Paul has the Dynamite show with Jeff, and then there's Speaking of Strong Style on Thursdays, and sometimes there's breaking news shows that they do. Like I think Scott Edwards went live about the Marigold, Rossi's new promotion, and so we try to do breaking news stuff like that. And then I know there's other content that pops up here and there on the network besides us having our regular shows during the week. So definitely make sure that you subscribe because there's all kinds of content, and that's the easiest way to support us is by subscribing, and then that is a huge help for us and talking to us in the chat, which we enjoy engaging with you guys. We always have really good conversations and a lot of fun and different perspectives, which is always cool. And then that helps us defeat the algorithm. And I know it's such a dumb thing to have to worry about, but unfortunately, doing things like this, we have to fight with the algorithm, and liking our videos helps. And
well, how else are we going to make free content for wrestling promotions?
Right, exactly. So we appreciate all of that. And yeah, definitely make sure you follow us on Twitter and Instagram. I try to be a little bit more active on Instagram.
I'm trying to work on the cross thing, and I'm also gonna as soon as I can remember the passwords, I'm going to link it to this so that it will also go up like it does on Twitter. So because there is a function for us to link it to our Instagram as well. So nice. I just need to remember the passwords because that's the thing. Passwords.
Yes. Thank you, Hassan. Chatters like the video if you didn't. Yes, please do. And even if you're not in the chat, you can still help us. You don't have to participate in the chat if you don't want to. We're cool if you don't do that. But if you like the video, that helps bump us up into the algorithm and
definitely
to other people. So that's super, super helpful for us. And it's a free thing, a free way to support us. We do have a super chat function. We just never remember to promote it.
But if you ever want to give us money, go ahead. Use that
if you want to
little
give us money,
use that little dollar sign next to the chat.
Yeah, that thing does work. We just never remember to promote it. We try to give you the free ways to help us because it helps. Not only does it help me and Mel, but it helps our entire fight game community, and everybody works really hard to get this content out. And believe it or not, we do work hard to sit here and chat with you for 2 hours.
Yes. and they all have real life jobs.
Yes,
everyone has
that is true. That is true.
Everyone has an in real life job and in real life things.
Yes,
but we like talking to you guys. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you for hanging out with us. And the show was going to end like 20 minutes ago, and we're still here.
Oh, it is what it is.
I think we have covered. Yeah, well, we had to go on a Jericho rant. That's what happens.
These things.
But we appreciate you guys for hanging out. I think unless there's anything else you want to add, I think we're finally done, and we will give you your afternoons back. And thank you for that. And if you're watching on the replay, we appreciate that too. That helps us a lot as well to watch the replays. And we will be here next week at our normal time, and hopefully aliens won't take over the beginning of our podcast again.
My neck brace, I'm healed.
So, it's so miraculous.
All right. Have a great week, everybody.